They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
What's whole benefit money?
I'll
Thank you.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, hands off Chairman Amalia Shatella, hands off the Uhuru 3. The fight is not over, and I want to salute everybody for being on today's call. Today is Saturday, October 19th, and we are here with the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. My name is Mwezi Odom, and I am a proud member of the African People's Socialist Party and have the great honor of serving as the chairperson of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Fightback Coalition. And I want to salute those who are already tuning in, who are dropping in the chat that they are here. Looking forward to a really empowering and powerful program on today. And today's topic is from the Panther 21 to the Uhuru 3. We're looking at how conspiracy charges are used to attack the African liberation movement. It is no different then than it is today. And we understand that this is a fight back that is not over, as we have said. And I really want to just salute everybody who is on today's call, who has been with us through this fight for the past 2 years. And we have a very packed and exciting program on today. So I'm going to just say thank you for being here. Please share today's program. Before we begin or move forward in today's program, I want to just, take a moment to acknowledge, what is very glaring and what we cannot ignore. And I just want to say that the African People's Socialist Party has historically stood with the struggle for the Palestinian people. This is another fight that is not over, and that we will see it through till victory. And to that, we say, Gaza, hold the line, victory to Palestine. As we know, this week, the Biden administration announced that U.S. troops are, that they are deploying U.S. troops to Israel to fight alongside the Israeli military, and to show, showing that the U.S. role as the leader of this brutal colonial assault of the people of Palestine continues to deepen. And if the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, we stand with the national liberation struggle of the Palestinian people against the illegitimate US-backed settler Israeli state, and we salute the historic and the heroic leader of the Palestinian people who was assassinated this week, Yahya Sinwar, and who wrote, quote, "A minute of living with the dignity and pride is better than 1,000 years of a miserable life under the boots of occupation," end quote. We want to salute this historic struggle led by the Palestinian people. We understand that this attack on Hamas is very clear, and it's an attack on the Palestinian people. This is genocide, just no different than this attack on the African People's Socialist Party is an attack on the African liberation struggle. So we say hands off Uhuru, hands off Palestine, victory to Palestine, and that fight is not over. We want to salute all the members of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. This is a coalition made up of over 50 some organizations and over 150 endorsing organizations who unite with this non-sectarian anti-colonial free speech movement to say that we say drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. We have the right to freedom of speech. And this was formed a year following the vicious July 29 raids on the Uhuru movement. So we want to call on you to join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. You can do that today by going to handsoffuhuru.org/coalition and clicking the join button. Again, comrades, thank you for joining on today's call. I see more people are joining us, so continue to share handsoffuhuru.org/register. Let's get everybody in on this call. And again, we just want to salute and thank everybody who has been with us since the July 29 raids on the Uhuru movement. It was a 2-year struggle. We pulled everybody in a week before the historic Uhuru 3 trial to Tampa, Florida for the August 31st rally. Many of those dynamic speakers are here with us on today. And again, we had a historic free speech trial of the century that took place in the courthouse in Tampa, Florida. Many of you were there. Many of you tuned in. Many of you helped made that historic fight back happen in the courtroom. We have to salute our brilliant, brilliant attorneys, one of them who you will be hearing from on today. And again, we have to salute our amazing volunteers, our donors, our supporters from across the world who have been with us since day one. The outcome of the Uhuru 3 trial was on September 12th, 2024. It was clear that it was very clear that that, as the chairman said, the verdict is in. We are our own liberators. We do not work for the Russians. We work for Black people. And the jury united and they agreed not guilty on this bogus charge of being foreign agents, which carried a 10-year maximum prison sentence. But as we say, the fight is not over because the Uhuru 3 were wrongfully convicted under a political law called US 371. This is the federal crime of conspiracy or, to commit an offense against the US government or to defraud the US government. This carries a 5-year maximum prison sentence. And we understand that this fight, as we say, is not over because our comrades are still under the boot of this colonial state, and we will not rest until our comrades are free. Again, the US government lied and lost. The Uhuru movement told the truth. You told the truth. You helped to make this fight back, in the books, in the history books, that it says that the Uhuru movement works for Black people, not for Russians. But again, this fight is not over. And I want to salute Chairman Amalia Shatella, the leader of the Uhuru movement, of the African liberation struggle, and just just led a very brilliant, organization and movement that helped us get to this point where we can continue to sum up what is happening in the world through this trial, which is not happening in isolation from anything else that we see happening around us. And comrades, we want to thank you because we made the call, what you can do. We told you to write character letters. We told you to donate, to march on the White House, to attend the December 16th sentencing. So that's a new date, and we'll talk more about that. But all of these things we have called on you to do. We will have more information about that on today's call. Again, we have a very dynamic program for you on today. I want to welcome and appreciate our 3 comrades, the Uhuru 3, Chairman Amalia Shatella of the African People's Socialist Party, Penny Hess of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and Jesse Neville, chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. These comrades have been on the front lines. I want to salute you, comrades. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and your presentations on today. And as well as our dynamic lineup on today, I want to salute the vice chair of the Black Hispanic Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, Sister Comrade Lisa Davis, also Ward Churchill, author, activist, and COINTELPRO expert is joining us on today. Sister Afia Wangaza, the director of the Malcolm X Center for Self-Determination in Greenville, South Carolina, and also with WMXP Radio. We want to welcome Professor Natu Saito, who is an author and an activist and also a professor of law at Georgia State University. Attorney Angela Rainey, who is with Goodman Law Offices, one of the Uhuru 3 leading attorneys representing Penny Hess. And Angela Rainey is also, a fighter and has done so much work behind the scenes. We're really excited to have you on, comrade, as well as Lauren Reagan, attorney with the Civil Liberties Defense Center. And that's last but not least, because Lauren was there from the beginning, helping us build this dynamic legal team, and we cannot understate her significance in this fight back. So what we have up next, comrades, is an opportunity for us to give a report. And I actually don't know if Comrade Aisha is on with us right now. And if not, I can maybe help go through some of these slides. But we also are going to be hearing from Director Aisha Field. She is the chair of the, okay, great, she's here. She is the chair of the Uhuru 3 Right for Justice campaign. Many of you poured in letters of support. We're going to hear from her coming up right now to give us an update on this dynamic call to action for everybody to write letters on behalf of the Uhuru 3. So before I go any further, I want to just have us give a quick report from Director Aisha Fields. Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much. I'm honored to be a part of today's program. Just to get started, I want to just really salute and thank everybody who has participated in this really important character letter writing campaign that has been initiated as a part of the fight back for this process of winning total victory in the case of the Uhuru 3. This letter writing campaign was kicked off with an International Letter Writing Day on October 5th. And I'm telling you, I mean, people have responded so incredibly. And I just want to say thank you for all the letters that have come in so far. We've gotten letters from around the world. Really incredible, testimony to the leadership and the support that exists out there for our comrades, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and Chair Jesse Neville. So I just really want to say thank you so very much to everybody who's already submitted all 3 letters for the Uhuru 3. I just want to give an update on where we are with the letter writing campaign. So our campaign deadline has been extended. Our initial deadline was October the 15th, and we've now extended it to October the 30th. So if you have not had an opportunity to submit your letters yet, there is still time. We definitely need your support to fully meet the goal that we've established for this campaign. So we're currently at 84% of our goal. Our goal was to win 500 letters for each of the comrades. And we are very, very close to that goal. We're at 84%, but we're not at 100%. So there's still more that needs to be done. So what I'd like to do now is just to kind of quickly go through some of the guidelines, look at a sample letter, because some of the feedback that we've been getting from people who've been participating in the letter writing campaign is, maybe somewhat, people are sometimes a little bit intimidated about writing the letter. Sometimes people feel like it might take a lot of time. So they kind of like, saying they'll get to it. And we want to just make it so clear that this is something that you can do, and you can do it quickly. You can do it fairly easily. And from our point of view, we want the volume. So it doesn't have to be a big, long letter. It could just be a really short, powerful, effective letter that can contribute to this campaign. So in terms of our guidelines, just very, very briefly, we just really want to be telling the judge who you are, your relationship to the Uhuru 3. Details, if you know them personally, about how you know them. Big thing is not to discuss your opinion about guilt or innocence. That's not what this letter writing campaign is about. This is about showing the judge who the Uhuru 3 are to us, and humanizing them, giving them, giving the judge an idea about what they mean to the community, and what kind of impact they've had on our lives. So we want to explain why they're good people, and why the judge should have leniency in sentencing for the comrades. We want to share personal stories that highlight their positive character. If we know them personally, we can give a specific example of something that they've done that has been impactful to you. We can all definitely, whether we know them personally or not, speak to the community work that they're involved in and how powerfully important it is for them to continue to remain in the community to do that important work. So you don't have to follow these guidelines specifically, and you should write these letters in your own voice, in your own words. Although we do have some samples on our website that I'll talk to you about in a moment that can give you some ideas about maybe how to get your letter started. So what I'd like to do now is just to go through a really brief example of what we thought was a really great letter. Short, sweet, to the point, just to show you how quickly but effectively you can be in terms of writing these letters. So you'll notice at the top of the letter, it's to the judge. You would have the judge's contact information. You would put your contact information, and then you would address the letter to the judge. In this particular letter, this one is for Penny. It says, "My name is Sally Jones, and I live in Huntsville, Texas. I have known Penny for more than 20 years. I know her to be a kind, generous, and sincere person, very committed to the cause of uplifting all communities, not simply one at the expense of another. Please give her the most lenient sentence possible so that she can continue to do the work that means so much to me and to so many others. Sincerely, Sally." See, so it doesn't have to be a treatise. It could just be something really short, powerfully. How do you know this person? Now, if you don't know Penny or the chairman or Jesse personally, you could have easily written a similar kind of letter without saying, "I've known Penny for 20 years. So we just wanted to, give you a sense of what kind of things would be helpful and important to put in a letter. You could speak just directly to the work that's been done. So we have 11 days left, okay, for this campaign. And we're so close to meeting our goal. And we know that we can do it. We just really need everybody who is listening today to write your letter today. If you haven't written your letter, maybe you've written your letter for the chairman, but you haven't written your letter for Penny or Jesse. Please get those letters, the additional letters in today. Maybe you intended to write a letter, you just haven't found the time. Please take a few moments and write that letter today. Maybe this is your first time hearing about the campaign. Maybe you're newly familiar with the case. Please take a moment and write your letter today. We've got some incredible resources on our site, which hosts our letter writing campaign. And that website, if you can go to the next slide, that website is handsoffuhuru.org/letters. So if you go to that website, you can find the letter guidelines that I've just went through kind of briefly, but you can see the full letter guidelines. You can see bios of each of the Uhuru 3. So if you're not as familiar with one or the other, or you're newly acquainted with any of them, you can see bios and get a sense of who they are and the important, incredible work that they've done. There are sample letters there. There are links to work, some of the practical programs of the Uhuru movement that you could speak to in the letter. So we've got links to really important programs of our party and movement. And then what's I think really helpful too is that we have the ability for you to submit your letter directly from the site. So if you go to this site, handsoffuhuru.org/letters, you go on the right side, you'll see that there are links for if you want to write a letter to the chairman, to Penny, or to Jesse. You click on that, you're going to fill out some information about yourself. And then from there, you'll be able to have a letter formatted already for you. The information about the judge will be there. Awesome. So if you can go right to the one for Jesse or Penny or the chairman, you'll fill out some information about yourself. It'll set up a template. So that's where you'll fill out the information. It'll set up a template for you already with your information, with address to the judge. You can just get to typing. And then when you're done, you push submit. When you push submit, your letter is going to go to the appropriate attorney, because we're not sending these letters directly to the judge. We're sending them to the attorneys, and the attorneys will get them to the judge. So when you use this process and push submit, the letters will go to the appropriate attorney and to the committee. And then from there, the attorneys will get them to the judge. So we're not writing the judge directly, although we're addressing the letters to the judge. Also, we have information on this page about what to do if you're going to do a handwritten letter. So in the case of a handwritten letter, you would write the letter, take a clear picture of it, and then you would email it to the appropriate attorney, and you would CC letters at handsoffuhuru.org. And we've got the attorney information and everything you need also on this page. So the key, and if you know, of what I want to say today is, please help us reach that goal. We're so close. 11 days left. We know we can do it. Get those letters in today. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. Let's give the judge every reason to consider making sure that he gives the most lenient sentence possible so that our comrades don't have to spend one moment in jail. They can continue to do the incredibly important work that they've been doing for so long. So thank you so much, and Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, comrade. Aisha Fields, chair of the Uhuru 3 letter writing campaign. Really want to salute you, comrades Lauren, Len, and just everybody who has made this a really dynamic push. We are so close to our goal, and I'm so confident that we will meet this extended goal, because so many people have been saying, I missed the deadline. How can I still, contribute to this? And you still can. Go to handsoffuhuru.org/letters. So comrades, that is just one of the many things that we are calling on people to do. Some of us can do this, can do that. Again, if you have written your letter, you have also heard us say, that this fight back, continues to be one that that requires material resources. So we're calling on everybody to continue to donate to this fight back. Today we have a goal. We're going to talk about that goal. We have a goal of raising $2,000 on today. So we're calling on you to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. We're also calling on you to march on the White House. You're going to hear more about why we're saying that, why we've been doing that for 16 years, and we're excited to make it happen again. And we are calling on you to pack the courthouse on December 16th in Tampa, Florida. This is where the judge will be, laying the sentence. Next slide. Sorry, comrade. Laying the sentence for the, for the Uhuru 3. So we're calling you to pack the courthouse. Go to handsoffuhuru.org today. You can go to handsoffuhuru.org/pack the courthouse to sign up to attend the sentencing. Pack that room, and then there are other activities that that will be happening on the ground in Tampa on that day as well. So we have a goal of raising $2,000 on today. Go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Any amount counts. We're calling on people to, and we're going to have a really great appeal today so you can learn more about where all these resources are going. If you can be a sustaining donor to this campaign, that is an incredible, contribution as well, because that tells us and shows us that monthly we will have continual, resources coming in, because we plan to appeal this wrongful conviction, and that appeal is going to take time, money, and so we need, all the resources that we can as we push forward. So you can contribute by going to handsoffuhuru.org. You can put in the chat right now, how much you have pledged, how much you will pledge if you cannot make that on today. But, comrades, go ahead and make that call. Again, the fight is not over, and we are continuing to say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, because we understand that this is an attack on Africa, and we're going to move today's program to be able to give, greater context to, to what we are talking about when we talk about the Panther 21. And so I want to actually bring up Comrade Penny Hess, who is one of the Uhuru 3. Comrade Penny is going to help, lay out a very dynamic, PowerPoint to give us more context on why we say from the Panther 21 to the Uhuru 3, how these conspiracy charges are historically used to attack the African liberation movement. So I want to appreciate you, comrade, and say hands off Penny Hess as well. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Chair Mwezi. And I want to also salute that powerful presentation by Dr. Aisha Fields, and everybody. Want to thank you so much. You've contributed the letters and came to the trial on August 31st. Just the support that's been out there, just the comrades that have stood with Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement, the Uhuru 3, is very, very powerful. We appreciate you deeply and profoundly. So I'm going to give, just want to go through a brief PowerPoint on this whole understanding, or an overview, actually, of the conspiracy law, the USC 371, which has been used against political movements for 100 years and more. Next slide. So in 2023, the Uhuru 3 were charged with the violation of 18 U.S. Code 951, which is, quote, acting as an agent of a foreign government without prior notification to the Attorney General. Specifically, they were accusing the chairman of being an agent of the Russian government. And also, so there were two different charges. The code of US 371, conspiracy to commit an offense or to defraud the United States if two or more persons conspire either to commit any offense against the United States or to defraud the United States. Next slide. So at the trial on September 12th of this year, in Tampa, the Middle District of Tampa, the court, the Uhuru 3 were acquitted of the 951 charge of being, quote, Russian agents, but were convicted of the conspiracy charge. Next slide. So this says that the Uhuru 3 are not Russian agents, but it falsely alleges that we want it to be Russian agents. Next slide. So this conviction, as we know, completely goes counter to the 60 years plus of tireless, relentless leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela for the liberation of African people, Black people all over the world. As the chairman said, he works for Black people, not Russians, not any white person. Next slide. And clearly, these laws, these charges are being used as a political attack on the chairman, on Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the African People's Socialist Party, and African people, and all freedom-loving people. Next slide. And this is a thought crime. Next slide. According to the Free Speech Center website, the conspiracy law 371 lacks specificity about what constitutes agreement and intent. Because of the ambiguities associated with the definition of conspiracy, conspiracy laws interfere with the First Amendment rights by allowing governments and states to crack down on those who disagree with the position of the state. And this is this Free Speech Center and these other organizations. There are a number of people and organizations, including lawyers' organizations, that are out there calling for the repeal of the 371. And I think that that is important. And the Uhuru, Hands Off Uhuru is also going to be demanding an repeal of the 951 charge as well. So we're going to talk about both of those, and we're calling up, I know Comrade Jesse is going to be up to talk about the whole campaign to repeal the 951. Oh, just a little bit of history. The first conspiracy statute in the United States was passed by Congress in 1867 and later codified as 18 U.S.C. 371 in 1948. And it was used a lot after the Civil War and the uprising of African people. The law was enacted after the Civil War to arrest supposedly to arrest Southerners who might continue fighting the U.S. government. Next slide. The punishment for conspiracy under 18 U.S.C. 371 is a fine of up to $250,000 and imprisonment of up to 5 years or both. Next slide. African and other activists charged with similar charges as the Uhuru 3, 1886, anarchists convicted on conspiracy. Next slide. W.E.B. Du Bois was indicted in 1951 for being more like the 951, an unregistered agent of a foreign power. Next slide. The U.S. Communist Party forces were convicted on conspiracy in 1949. Next slide. conspiracy was first used in international law during the Nuremberg trials. Next slide. The Panther 21 trial in 1971, where the Black Panther Party in New York was charged with a conspiracy to, I think there was about 150 conspiracy charges that they faced, and that included conspiracy to blow up the botanical gardens of the Bronx and many other, to kill police and, all of these kinds of charges to attempt to, as part of the movement of counterinsurgency by the US government to crush the African Revolution of the 1960s. And the incredible Afeni Shakur was the mother of Tupac Shakur, who had been in prison for 2 years on these conspiracy charges. There weren't enough lawyers and attorneys to go around. She led this defense and basically forced the US government to drop all the charges on them. Next slide. The Chicago 8 trial, the famous conspiracy trial. You can read about that the Chicago 8, the Chicago 7, the white protesters at the Democratic Convention of 1968, and along with Bobby Seale, who was added to that, the Black Panther, and that trial also won, and those were conspiracy charges as well. Next slide. Roger Hallam recently, who is an environmentalist in Britain, I believe, and others were found guilty in May 2024 of conspiracy to cause a public nuisance for coordinating direct action protests over 4 days in London, November 2022. Next slide. Tampa pro-choice activists were convicted just the other day with stringent sentences in the same courtroom or downstairs in the same courthouse during the same time that the Uhuru 3 trial was being conducted in the Middle District courthouse in Tampa. And one of them received a year in prison, and I think another couple of them were given 60 days and then a house arrest after that. So very stringent sentences for basically for spray painting, some kind of building that they were struggling against. Next slide. The Supreme Court Justice William Rehnquist, and the chairman is using the laws that the US says it represents. Well, Rehnquist was, I believe, put in by Nixon and Reagan and was right wing, but he said, at the heart of the First Amendment is the recognition of the fundamental importance of the free flow of ideas and opinions on matters of public interest and concern. The freedom to speak one's mind is not only an aspect of individual liberty and thus a good into itself, but also is essential to the common quest for truth and the vitality of society as a whole. We have therefore been particularly vigilant to ensure that individual expressions of ideas remain free from governmentally imposed sanctions, which of course is not true, because this is how it is attacking the African liberation movement and the Uhuru movement today. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Comrade Chairwoman Penny. This really is like political education. This is historical information. It's really important that we understand going into the courtroom, into the streets as we take this fight back out, that we understand how to articulate what is happening, that it is bogus, and that we will continue to fight back. So I want to really appreciate you, Comrade, and everybody who has helped to contextualize what is happening. And we are moving on in this program, and I just, really want to salute the significance of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, because this is where your struggle, can, come under a anti-colonial free speech movement, one that is taking every single demand, of the people, under one banner, under one struggle. So we want to invite you again to go to Hands Off Uhuru, uhuru.org/coalition, because many of our coalition members have also been and continue to be under the boot of colonialism. We want to really salute our comrades from Unión del Barrio who were there who have been there from day one, and who were there on the ground. And again, we make the call: from sea to shining sea, Indigenous people must be free. This is anti-colonial free speech. This must be protected. This must be fought for. And in that vein, we say, not one more year, free Leonard Peltier. We want to salute the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee as well. These comrades and this campaign we have taken up, and that we will continue to fight for the liberation and the freedom of Leonard Peltier. And as we say, not one more year. And as we move to close this overview, we want to also appreciate and stand in complete solidarity with another member of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. This is the Sami Doon Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network. I just want to read a quick message. These are to our comrades and our valued members of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, in particular, Comrade Charlotte Cates, as well as others from Sami Doon. The Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition stands with our comrades from Sami Doon Palestinian Network Solidarity with this organization in supporting Palestinian prisoners and political prisoners and Palestinian people living under the genocidal assaults of the US-backed colonial Israeli government. Sami Doon is coming under increasingly vicious attacks and sanctions by the colonial governments of the United States and Canada. 2 days ago, they were branded as a, quote, terrorist organization in a press release from the US Department of Treasury and their foreign assets control. So you can find this information online. You can see how, again, these comrades are being under attack. And mind you, October was also the month where the US government, levied its embargo on Cuba, another member of our, this fight back, also of the fight back coalition. So all of this is not forgotten. We are taking it all under the same banner. And again, we say, from the Panther 21 to the Uhuru 3, we will continue to struggle. We're going to hear more about how this is all contextualized right now in our program. So I'm going to turn it over to our next speaker. I'm going to bring up one of the Uhuru 3, Chair Jesse Neville. And again, I want to, as he's coming up, I see you there. I want to remind everybody to, again, go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Help us reach our goal of $2,000. So when we get to our appeal, we can make that quick. So comrade, welcome up. And you're going to give us an update on the conspiracy charge and its political significance. So Uhuru.
Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
Uhuru. Hands off Chairman Amalia Shatella.
Hands off Chairman Amalia Shatella. Uhuru.
Thank you, comrades. Thank you, Chair Mwezi and Chairwoman Penny, for the great opening presentations and overviews, and Dr. Aisha Fields. It's a great honor to be up here on this stage next to my leadership and the leadership of the Uhuru movement and the Uhuru 3, Chairman Amalia Shatella, as well as Chairwoman Penny Hess. And I'm very proud and honored to be a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, organizing in the white community for reparations and solidarity with the African Liberation Movement under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. I'm proud to be a member of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, and I'm proud to be one of the Uhuru 3 with Chairman Amalia Shatella and Chairwoman Penny Hess. I also want to salute my leadership, the African People's Socialist Party, including Deputy Chair Ona Zinaya Shatella, and I want to salute our brilliant legal team, including Angela Rainey, who is incredible. I cannot overstate the monumental contributions that Angela made. When she joined our legal team, it was a game changer. She did an incredible amount of work leading up to the trial and during the trial, brilliantly arguing before this judge, William Jung, who, as a side note, was a law clerk under William Rehnquist, who Chairman Penny just quoted from in the 1980s when he was a Supreme Court justice. So just want to salute Angela, as well as Mutaki Akbar, Leonard Goodman, Addie Griffin, and Tom Inskeep. And also shout out and revolutionary salute to Director Chimaranga Selambao, who played a really important leading role in our legal fight back from day one, all of which was under the brilliant and courageous strategic leadership of Chairman Amalia Shatella. So I also wanted to quickly make sure everybody noticed, and I know we'll be putting this out more throughout this event, that the date of the sentencing was postponed from November 25th to December 16th, and we'll be saying more about that. But today I will be talking about the verdict that was delivered by the jury on September 12th in Tampa, Florida, just a few weeks ago, what it means, how it happened, and why we must continue the fight back and demand not one day in prison, free the Uhuru 3, hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And Chairwoman Penny just laid out some incredible historical context for beginning to understand what this verdict really means. And I want to begin by stating that what I have learned under the leadership and teachings of the chairman, and all of us have learned, is that law is, as the chairman says, law is the opinion of the ruling class. In the US and worldwide for that matter, that ruling class is a colonial ruling class. The colonial ruling class creates the law, the colonial state enforces the law. That's why they call these killer cops law enforcement officers. But colonialism itself, as the chairman says, is illegitimate. So the basis for the creation and enforcement of such law is pillage, rape, slavery, colonial savagery. So our discussion of these legal concepts is not based upon an assumption of their legitimacy, but is in the interest of trying to gain some understanding of them so that they can be fashioned, as the chairman has done from day one, into weapons of struggle in a counteroffensive against the colonial state. So we can go to the next slide. So as Chairwoman Penny has stated, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru 3 were convicted under a political law called 18 USC Section 371, the federal crime of, quote, conspiracy to commit an offense or defraud the United States government. They used this law to prosecute and convict the Uhuru 3 purely on the basis of political speech, speech that even the jury agreed was not done at the direction or control of a foreign government, speech that even the jury agreed flowed purely from the point of view and agency and voice of African people. This conviction is an attempt to establish a dangerous precedent. It is meant to be a green light for the US government to openly attack, criminalize, and imprison those who exercise their supposed constitutional right to freedom of speech. Next slide. And as Chairwoman Penny also stated, more specifically in this case, it's an attempt to crush the African liberation movement, the programs that the Uhuru movement has built to uplift and empower the African working class, including the Black Power Blueprint, the doula training programs, the farmers markets, the community gardens. All of these programs the party has built to advance the anti-colonial struggle of African people are coming under assault by this bogus prosecution. And next slide. And we also understand that the inclusion of Chairwoman Penny Hess and myself in this indictment and conviction is an attempt specifically to attack the work that the chairman and the party have done for 50 years to build a principled relationship between white people and African people, a relationship that isn't based on oppression, but is based on solidarity with African people in their struggle for self-determination. Next slide. So as has been summed up, the conspiracy verdict was one part of what happened that day. The other part was a major victory, a huge blow to the US government's political objective to use this foreign agents law to attempt to discredit, delegitimize, criminalize the voice of African people when that voice speaks out for freedom and independence by saying that it was actually Russians behind the scenes and that that voice was merely a megaphone for a Russian point of view. They failed to make this point, to win this argument before the jury and before the eyes of the world because of the brilliant leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So they had no choice from their perspective to resort to this bogus frame-up conspiracy conviction to try to put the leader of the African Revolution behind bars for up to 5 years. But the movement of the people can stop them. So, comrades, on the screen here, what you're looking at is actually a screenshot of the actual verdict form that the jurors filled out on that day on September 12th. And this one is specifically for the chairman. And I wanted to show this because I think it helps to spell out the illogical, inconsistent nature of this verdict more than anything else. What does this verdict form say? It says, count 1, conspiracy to act as an agent of the Russian government or officials without prior notification to the Attorney General. Guilty. Count 2, acting as an agent of the Russian government or officials without prior notification to the Attorney General. Not guilty. So guilty of conspiring to do the thing that we're not guilty of doing. How did this verdict come about? First of all, we have to look at what happened in that court. The Uhuru 3, under the chairman's leadership, our legal team, beat the foreign agents charge, demolished their entire case, laid it to rest, gave, as the chairman said, the dream team was a nightmare for the prosecution and their FBI agents and so-called expert witnesses. But we got this split verdict, a verdict that reflected the confusion in the verdict, reflected the confusing jury instructions and the avalanche of lies, manipulations, distortions, and misleading statements that the prosecutors unleashed upon the jury in their closing arguments in particular. Next slide. So they found the Uhuru 3 guilty of conspiracy. In a conspiracy case, you don't need to have actually committed the crime they're charging you with conspiring to do to be found guilty of conspiring to commit the crime. As long as the government can convince the jury that you and at least one other person wanted to commit the crime. So conspiracy is, as has been stated, a thought crime. But even that doesn't make sense in our case, because really ask the question, conspiracy to do what? Again, conspiracy to act as an agent of Russia without notifying the Attorney General. So the specific crime is not telling the Attorney General's office that we were working as Russian agents. But the jury said the chairman never was working as a Russian agent. So how could he conspire to hide from the government that he was working as a Russian agent if, as the jury itself affirmed, no such thing ever took place? The so the prosecutors misled the jury by telling them over and over again that a partnership is a conspiracy. But a partnership is not a conspiracy. A conspiracy is a partnership to commit a crime. The crime they said we partnered to commit was working as agents of Russia. There was no evidence of the chairman or the Uhuru 3 ever working as agents of Russia, something made very clear at trial, much to the devastation of the prosecutors and their FBI agents. The prosecutors also told the jury that if at least one co-conspirator carries out at least one overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy, then you must find all of them guilty. But if the Uhuru 3 never worked for the Russian government, how could any of the so-called overt acts that they presented, which were all speeches, articles, demonstrations, petitions, be considered evidence of an overt act in furtherance of a non-existent conspiracy to work for the Russian government? The prosecutor said, in a conspiracy case, you don't have to show an actual written agreement to be convinced that there was an agreement. You can infer from the evidence that there was an agreement. But they said, in this case, there was a written agreement. There were notes and minutes from meetings showing that we had agreed to do this. But there was no evidence of that whatsoever. There was only evidence of notes and minutes from meetings where the chairman talked about his goals of building the African liberation movement. So they had no evidence that the Uhuru 3 were foreign agents. They had no evidence of any conspiracy either. It makes no sense legally, but it's not about laws or evidence or rules of procedure, as the chairman teaches us. It was a political attack carried out under the cover of law, plain and simple. So we waged the struggle in the streets, and the struggle in the courts is continuing as well. There is a post-trial motion right now for the judge to vacate the verdict or grant a new trial on the conspiracy charge. And if that is denied, a motion for appeal will be filed immediately after sentencing. So just to wrap this up, I want to reiterate that, again, the only way, next slide, thank you. The only way to understand this insane, illogical, inconsistent verdict is to remember, as the chairman said all along, this was a political trial with political objectives. And the chairman always said, we have to put the state on trial. So that means we have to say, yes, a conspiracy was revealed in that courtroom in Tampa in September. There was a criminal conspiracy to commit a crime, but it did not involve the Uhuru movement. It involved Daniel Marcet from the prosecutor's office in Tampa. It involved Kelly Bowen, the lead investigator for the FBI. It involved the Department of Justice National Security Division and Counterintelligence Department. And it frankly involved the St. Louis Police Department, the St. Petersburg Police Department, Regions Bank, and all of the other financial institutions who colluded to commit the crime of attempting to deprive Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru 3 of their alleged constitutional right to freedom of speech, and by extension, to dismantle the First Amendment altogether. That was the real conspiracy that was unveiled in the court in Tampa last year. So Chairwoman Penny covered this, so I'm going to skip this slide, but you know, I appreciate the whole history of the conspiracy charge used against the African Liberation Movement. I just wanted to also mention that the chairman himself has faced similar charges throughout his revolutionary life. When we talk about thought crimes, in 1968, just 4 days after the FBI orchestrated assassination of Martin Luther King, the chairman gave a speech in Gainesville, Florida. Right after that speech, he and his comrade Libe Wilcox were charged with incitement to riot. They created this law called the Joseph Waller Law, the Joe Waller Law, named for the name the chairman was known by at that time. To be charged under this law, as the chairman was, did not require that they prove a riot, quote unquote, actually took place, only that the chairman wanted a riot to take place. So this is nothing new. So as the chairman has always said, the people are the makers and shapers of history. Under the leadership of the African working class, we will continue to fight. And because of that, we will continue to win. Now is the time to escalate the political and legal counteroffensive to show the US government that we will not stand by while they attempt to take away Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the Uhuru 3, and the Bill of Rights they claim to uphold. Pack the court on December 16th. Donate to the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Fund. Mobilize the counteroffensive for anti-colonial free speech and demand not 1 day in prison. Free the Uhuru 3. Hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Wow, thank you so much, Comrade Chair Jesse, for that really impactful presentation. You know, just again, shredding the prosecution's case, shredding this, you know, this wrongful conviction, and you know, and just charting again the way forward under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I just really want to appreciate that presentation. And again, join the call for everybody to go to handsoffuhuru.org to sign up to attend the sentencing on December 16th. And also, again, a reminder to donate to this fight back, to make this appeal. We want to appreciate everybody for going already to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. We have a goal of raising $2,000 towards the legal defense on today. I know we can do it, and I want to thank those who have already made that call. So next up on our program, I want to welcome up Comrade Sister Afia Wangaza, the director of the Malcolm X Center for Self-Determination and WMXP Radio. Comrade Sister Afia is a veteran in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, as well as the Vine City paper, which was a prelude and also, you know, part of the prelude to the Black Power demand. It's really a great honor, as always, to have you on with us, Comrade Sister Afia. So I want to turn it over to you for your presentation. Uhuru.
The honor is all mine. It is with great pleasure that I stand with the Uhuru 3 and my fellow SNCC Field Secretary, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I am reminded of the report of the congressional subcommittee known as the Church Committee that issued in 1976 a factual finding which certified massive human rights violations against U.S. citizens based on race, political ideas, and political affiliation. While in the final report, the committee made permanent means of congressional review, made recommendations of permanent congressional review, none of the recommendations addressed the human rights violations suffered by dozens of political prisoners who were victimized by U.S. government, as previously cited by both Penny and Jesse, and as against the Black community, the Puerto Rican community, Native American communities, and which persists to this day. Such repression has resulted in murders, injuries, false arrests, malicious prosecutions, and lengthy imprisonment of scores of political prisons, including political prisoners, prisoners of war, and exile who were deliberately framed. Many of these political prisoners and prisoners of war and exile still languish in prisons throughout the United States. The U.S. political prisoners have languished in U.S. prisons for decades under cruel and inhumane conditions. Several have died in prisons. Others have endured years of solitary confinement, poor medical health care, and various forms of abuse and perfunctory parole hearings resulting in routine denial of release. We must not allow this to happen to these comrades. We must not allow the U.S. government to continue to present itself to the world as the gold standard for human rights when we in fact know that this is not true. We applaud the Uhuru 3 for their stand on behalf of humanity generally and the Black community specifically, the dignity of Black people, the Solidarity Committee members, Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, for their principled partnership with the Black community. We know that the community can, in fact, have an impact, and we call upon all who have not written their letters to do so, regardless of however short that letter might be. We cannot allow the U.S. government to persist in attempting to intimidate and to crush resistance to racist, sexist, classist repression of people of, excuse me, here and abroad. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru, Chairman.
Uhuru, I just wanted to just appreciate Comrade Sister Afia's presentation and just, her call to action and just a lot of the work that is not always talked about and seen, but, the work that Comrade Sister Afia brings to the UN to, continue to bring this, on an international platform. And again, it's just always a great honor. So thank you so much, Comrade Uhuru.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Comrade Afia. This is history to witness Afia and Gwanza speaking today. And it's an honor to have you here. And also it is my honor now to bring up Comrade Ward Churchill, author, activist, who has done so much history of the indigenous movement in this country, as well, and actually this hemisphere, as well as an expert on COINTELPRO and the counterinsurgency against both the African liberation movement and the indigenous liberation movement inside the US. So welcome, Comrade Ward. Uhuru.
Uhuru. CO. Hello, my relatives. Well, COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was a secret, and secret because it was illegal in detail at the time, a program undertaken by the FBI to destroy movements, organizations, individuals that were deemed politically objectionable, often by a broad range of members of the elite, those in charge, but specifically by the little circle headed by J. Edgar Hoover within the FBI. The FBI had for decades been organized, formed to be essentially the shock troops of maintaining the existing order, as Hoover understood it. It had spent decades offloading personnel that were considered to be highly competent in such operations into local and state police apparatus, red squads, in other words, that had been formed within virtually every significant police department in the country. This was a collaborating part of the apparatus. The techniques that were used, well, you'll find many of them in the earlier mentioned Church Committee report, 1976, but I'm going to say this just flat out. The committee report, while it acknowledged a number of things that were done, which had nothing to do with law enforcement, had everything to do with repression, planting false information with a stable of friendly journalists in order to discredit targeted organizations and individuals, infiltrating provocateurs into the organizations in order to discredit bona fide activists, spread discontent, divisiveness within the organizations and between organizations. And that ranged with disinformation that was spread by rumor on everything from expropriations of fundraising, skimming, relationships between romantically interested partners, wives, lovers, and so on. Often not true, but enough to raise suspicion and doubt and cause friction within the organizations. All the way up through filing of false charges, not because they even expected necessarily to go to trial, but in order to bankrupt, essentially, the targeted organizations, in causing them to mount bail, provide for legal defense, and this, as the current round of defendants can say, Uhuru 3 can say, this is not an inexpensive operation. But with RAM in Philadelphia, for example, they arranged by the FBI with the police to have arrested known activists, members of RAM, on any pretext all summer long in the summer of 1967, so that people would finally make bail, be released, and sometimes even on the steps of the jail be arrested on another pretext charge and taken right back into lockup, demoralizing, psychologically debilitating, and financially ruinous. And this is remarked in the FBI documents. Up through, well, a raft of conspiracy trials, only a few of which have been mentioned. Natsu Saito will be talking a bit more about that. Penny Hess already has. So is Jesse, for that matter. That was not ultimately the most effective means at the time. You had people who were being charged with direct offenses, framed for murder and so forth, and death by incarceration was certainly part of the agenda there. As was just mentioned, you've had people, well, some still in prison, some recently released after a half century on a frame-up charge, others who have died in prison. Chip Fitzgerald, within the last couple of years, who was arrested in 67, sentenced in 68, and died in prison in California quite recently. In Omaha, David Poindexter, Mondo Wilongwe, and that was David Rice and Ed Poindexter, who were nominally at least the heads of the Black Panther Party in that city, were framed for killing a police officer in a bombing ambush, and the actual perpetrator, and this was known at the time, was enlisted as a star witness against them. A federal judge, Urban, ordered that retrial within a year of their conviction, and it was overruled on grounds they did not have jurisdiction over state offenses And the governor and the parole board were saying from the outset that there were no circumstances under which they would ever be released. Both died in prison. Currently, the United States is exhibiting its humanitarianism by releasing people within an estimated, and this was a medical estimation by penal authorities, that they had 90 days or less to live because they were terminally ill. That applied to Russell Maroon Schultz, for example, who, well, I think he actually beat the 90 days by about 5. Matula Shakur, others. So you have that elimination, which has been too little discussed until recently in the literature. And then you had outright assassinations. Hampton and Clark in Chicago in December of '69. Bunchy Carter and John Huggins on the UCL campus. Before that, earlier in '69. And you had the attempt to eliminate Geronimo Pratt, Bunchy Carter's replacement, the LA Panthers, as the head of the organization, that occurred, I think, 5 days after the December 4th raid that resulted in Hampton's and Clark's death. But you also have about 30 other Panthers who were killed by police. So the Panthers in the press are being routinely depicted as violence prone and so forth. I don't remember ever seeing the police described as violence prone. And you had the Red Squad, Special State's Attorney Squad, in fact, in Chicago, formed to eliminate the Panther leadership. You had the Bureau of Strategic Services, or Bureau of Special Services, as it was known in various accounts, Boss or Bossy in New York, which was the Red Squad, worked on Malcolm X. His bodyguard was an infiltrator from the New York police from Boss, a black man recruited specifically for that purpose, who became one of the founding members of the Black Panther chapter. You had in Baltimore, where you had another essentially death by incarceration effort on a cop killing. The Black Panther chapter was actually started by an FBI provocateur by the name of Warren Hart. You have all manner of tricks of this sort to destabilize, disrupt, and destroy the movement. So none of what I've been talking about really enters into what the church committee disclosed. You could view it as a sort of operation of containment, perhaps even a warning that was sent to the intelligence agencies, because the FBI was only one of several that were investigated at the time, that they needed to back down. And the promulgation of regulations that were supposedly going to maintain some semblance of accountability and respect for the order, the appearance of things by the public with regard to law enforcement. But it also was an exercise in containment in so far as much of this was known but not remarked upon by the church committee at the time. And so it admitted to a dimension of illegality involved in the FBI's domestic operations and the nature of its collaboration with special police units. But it did not admit to the full extent of it, or, well, things may have taken a different course. So when you look at that report, there's much to be learned from it, but it by no means is definitive. You have to understand that everything which goes to the raid that was mounted on Chairman O'Malley's residence, the treatment that he was accorded, and his wife was accorded, the assaults on the headquarters in St. Petersburg and St. Louis, and on and on. That goes back, reflecting a reality that was more ubiquitous by far at the time than it has been recently, although it's never been absent. But this case indicates that they are preparing, if necessary, to maintain their version of order by the same methods that were utilized in Hoover's bad old days FBI, now and in the future. That reality needs to be grasped. And this case, these defendants, and the others that have been mentioned, they're Palestinians and otherwise, Leonard Peltier, well, they're to be commended for standing their ground, giving us an opportunity to confront the reality that in which we are embedded and which threatens to completely engulf us all. Uhuru, thank you for listening. I think I've used up my time pretty much, and I turn it back to the organizers.
Uhuru, thank you so much. Yes, Ward Churchill, always, always a profound honor to have you with us. And thank you again. And it is now my honor to introduce one of our attorneys who works in the office of Attorney Leonard Goodman, Comrade Angela Rainey, who's going to talk to us about the conspiracy charge used against political cases. And it's great to have you here. Comrade Jesse gave you a excellent overview and welcome, and I just want to join in welcoming you today, Comrade Angela Rainey.
Thank you for the introduction, Penny, and I really appreciate all the kind words that you and Jesse have said about me. So I did want to give an overview of conspiracy and how that's used in, silencing activists. And I think what Penny was saying is correct about the government has been using the modern conspiracy laws to silence activists in the last several years. I think it's important, though, to recognize that these conspiracy laws and conspiracy-like laws have been used even further back than what the U.S. government has used them. So historically, even if we go back to ancient Rome or even older British laws, we'll see that conspiracy laws were used to help preserve the state's power, or a tool of the ruling class of subjugation, basically. So one of the examples that Penny didn't mention was the Chicago 7 case or Chicago 8 case. And one of the interesting things you see is there's still references in the trial of targeting people that are rejecting capitalism, people that are calling out colonialism. So in the Chicago 7 case, we see where one of the protesters testifies in his testimony. They're certainly, although they're prosecuting them under conspiracy laws or anti-riot laws, you still see he's testifying, I live in a nation of alienated young people. We carry it around with us as a state of mind in the same way as the Sioux Indians carried the Sioux Nation around with them. It's a nation dedicated to cooperation versus competition, to the idea that people should have better means of exchange than property or money, that there should be some other basis for human interaction. It is in the state of mind, in the mind of myself and my brothers and sisters. So we see those themes of rejecting capitalism in all of these trials, despite what the charge says or what the government claims they're going after. And of course, in this trial, in the Chicago 7 trial, we see the prosecution portraying these protesters, the alleged co-conspirators, as evil people who had taken advantage of the rioters or the people that were protesting, and corrupted these kids in furtherance of anarchy, violence, and destruction. So it sounds, they didn't have the term disinformation, but it sounds very similar to this idea that they were indoctrinating people with disinformation. which is just a common, today we see that argument all the time of using disinformation to silence people to get around the First Amendment. So in addition to this general conspiracy law that we see targeting activism, I think it's important to see that, we see conspiracy laws used a ton, just all the time in drug cases. So, and we know that the American drug laws have traditionally been used to target African people in the United States. So why do we use, conspiracy law? Why does the government use conspiracy law? Well, it's certainly easier for them to prove a conspiracy. Like Penny and Jesse have been saying, you don't actually have to commit a crime. You just have to have an agreement to commit a crime. So the government has to prove an overt act. And can be a very innocent thing. So in a drug case, it's a really easy example to give you. If there's a man selling drugs and his girlfriend knows about it and maybe takes a phone call from a customer or drives a boyfriend to a house, even though she's never sold drugs, she can be convicted of a conspiracy in that case. Another reason is it's very easy to hold people accountable for the crimes of other people whenever they charge someone with conspiracy. So you may not even know your co-conspirators. In a drug case, for example, if you're getting drugs from whoever's distributing the drugs, you can also be held accountable for the amount of drugs that anybody else that's dealing with that same person, if they go sell drugs, you may not even know they're doing it, but you can technically, under the law, you can be held accountable for the amount of drugs that those people have sold and get a much longer sentence. It's just targeting innocent conduct. It's much easier to prove. And the thing is, even if the government can't convict you on this charge, it's certainly easier to bring the charge. It's a much lesser standard, right? So whenever you're convicted, you have to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But just to bring the charge, they just have to prove to the judge that have to have that probable cause standard. And the thing with that, it's very easy then to get a warrant for the government under this standard. And even if they don't convict you at trial, they've achieved a good part of their goal, right? So even if they ultimately lose, they've scared people. They've seen, people brought to trial on a charge. So that's going to help silence others that would speak out of fear of being targeted by those laws. What's very clear is even if they lose, they can still financially destroy individuals and organizations. A trial is very expensive, hiring qualified attorneys, hiring experts, paying for travel and preparation. That takes a huge toll on any, person. On the other hand, the government has unlimited resources to prosecute this crime, so it ends up in a very uneven system. There's certainly an emotional toll that comes from it. You see, searches that are basically military operations. It certainly is a very, traumatic experience to wake up to the police and flashbangs. And, and during those search warrants, very standard for destruction of property, breaking down doors, breaking windows, taking computers, and other information that's necessary for an organization to operate. So, and that's very expensive. The government doesn't come and pay for those damages. The organization, the person is left to do those repairs. And even if they don't convict you, many people, unfortunately, blindly believe the government, and we'll still have it, the thought that you must have done something wrong for the government to even come forward with that charge against you. So, I think that's, an overview of the basics of why the government is very fond of using these conspiracy charges to silence dissent, to preserve state power. So again, I appreciate, the recognition that Penny and Jesse have given the legal team and for inviting me on the show. Thank you.
Attorney Angela, that was amazing. Thank you so much. As always, we just salute you and your tremendous work and leadership and participation in this whole program and the Hands Off Uhuru movement. Thank you so much for that. And we are, Comrade Nwezi, are you going, should I introduce the next person or
Yeah.
should you? Okay.
Yes, well, I don't know if Lauren is here. Yes, let's go ahead and bring up our next speaker. But I just wanted to again just really appreciate that that presentation by Attorney Rainey, and just just the simplicity of helping us to understand this on a greater scheme. And I wanted to remind everybody to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. We're actually getting very close to halfway towards our goal. So I want to remind everybody to continue to donate towards this appeal to help support the work of comrades and Attorney Angela Rainey, Leonard, Addie, and Mutaki, and Tom, everybody. So thank you, comrades. And I'll turn it back to you, Chairwoman Penny.
Uhuru. Yes, Uhuru. Well, again, thank you, Attorney Angela Rainey. And I don't think that Comrade Lauren Reagan is with us today, but I just want to salute her from the attorney. She's an attorney from the I think it's called the Civil Liberties Defense Center in Oregon. And she was there right after the raids, right at the beginning of Hands Off Uhuru, and played a huge role in locating and helping us match together with these powerful legal team and attorneys that we have still as part of this movement today. So just really want to salute you, Comrade Lauren. And so Chairman Nwezi.
Yes, thank you, Karma. Thank you for that. Just that overview about who Lauren is. She was very integral part of this, of the DNA of this campaign, and really helping us to get a really strong footing on the legal foot. So I really want to salute Lauren as well, and we hope to have her on in future programs. And she's been on in the past, and we look forward to having her on again. So our next speaker, we're very excited to bringing up comrade, author, Professor Natu Saito, who is a distinguished university professor and professor of law at Georgia State University. We're really honored to have you. I had a chance to meet you in Tampa at the August 31st rally, just really powerful speaker on colonialism and the law. And this is something that we need to continue to talk about, and really happy to have you here, Comrade Natsu. So I'll turn it over to you, Uhuru.
Thank you.
I know you're just Uhuru.
Let's see. Doesn't seem to want to start the video.
Okay, well, we can hear you. Let's see if we can resolve that as we try to prompt you again. Okay, no luck on that end, huh?
That's odd. Okay. Well, would you like me to just start?
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and start? We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to participate and to support the Uhuru 3 in this struggle. I'm speaking to you from Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm on the traditional land of the Muskogee Creek Nation. It's land from which the Muskogees were violently removed so that it could be made profitable with the enslaved labor of American Indian and African peoples. And that's really where I'd like to start in addressing, this really quite broad topic of colonialism and the law. South Carolina's first so-called slave code was enacted in 1690. And it was borrowed from the laws already in place in British-occupied Barbados. It explained, this so-called slave code explained in its preamble that the colony, quote, cannot be well and sufficiently managed and brought into use without the labor and service of, quote, Negroes and other slaves, the latter meaning Indians. However, because these people are, quote, of barbarous, wild, savage natures, such as renders them wholly unqualified to be governed by the laws, customs, and practices of this province, a separate body of law regulating their conduct was necessary to protect the safety and security of the people of this province and their estates. There's so much built into that, right? But it illustrates how, from the beginning, there's been this perception of the need for dual legal system because those who are not considered people, in other words, colonizers, are barbarous, wild, and savage. And that's really our legal system in a nutshell still. The dominant narrative, the master narrative, you might say, promotes the notion of American exceptionalism. It portrays the United States as a liberal democracy that since its inception has led the world in the promotion of individual rights and freedoms. In turn, these freedoms, so-called, are credited with the accumulation of wealth that undergirds U.S. political and military might. This version of history comes from the settlers who, as Aziz Rana points out, claimed the guiding ideological purpose of the national project was to make widely available to insiders a vision of freedom involving participatory political structures and broad access to land and property. It omits, of course, the corresponding reality that this vision could only be realized with the appropriation of indigenous land, the attempted extermination of native peoples, the labor of enslaved Africans and American Indians, as well as otherwise exploited workers. The United States was, to again quote Rana, organized around two distinct and rigid accounts of sovereign authority, one for insiders of democratic consent and internal checks, and another for outsiders of near limitless discretion. We still live with this duality. Following the Civil War, the Constitution was amended to guarantee due process and formal equality to all people under the law. But we've seen what that has meant for people of African descent, from black codes and convict labor to legalized apartheid, to all the ways in which legal distinctions have been drawn to ensure the mass incarceration and marginalization of people of color. And we still have literally distinct legal regimes where constitutional protections don't apply even facially with respect to American Indian nations, external colonies like Puerto Rico, and immigration law. This is what it takes, apparently, to maintain contemporary American capitalism. And the greatest crime, that which is the most feared anyway, is the deconstruction of these dual systems of law and power that characterize this society. And that's because without what Angie calls the dynamic of difference, colonialism can't continue to reap the benefits of occupying someone else's land and extracting labor from those who are deemed other. The concept of conspiracy arises from this fear. It's a fear that the others, those deemed other, will organize to dismantle colonial power and privilege, that they are conspiring to do so at all times. And that's why, for example, we had those, in most slaveholding states and in many others, laws against more than 3 or 4 or 5 people of color gathering at all, talking to each other, right? And in fact, this is a reasonable fear, given that all people will struggle to maintain their dignity and humanity. But my point here is that in this big picture sense, only outsiders are likely to attempt to conspire to change the colonial status quo. It's not something that those who benefit from it are likely to do. And so conspiracy laws have always targeted those who are most oppressed. As Ward says, insiders by definition can't conspire because the whole project is their conspiracy. In one form or another, we've had conspiracy laws since the foundation of this state. According to Intel.gov, John Jay, who was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was not only a, quote, founding father of the country, but also a founder of its first counterintelligence agency. Apparently, in 1776, Jay, who was then only 30 years old, became head of a New York State Committee for Detecting and Defeating Conspiracies, established for the purpose of, quote, inquiring into, detecting, and defeating all conspiracies which may be formed against the liberties of America. It's 1776, right? The liberties of America. That says so much about who and what America was intended to become. It can be hard to see this if one accepts the origin story told, for example, on Columbus Day, but it's quite clear when we admit that this was and remains a settler colonial state. And that's what makes sense, I think, of the legal system with its apparent inconsistencies and contradictions. In 1823, John Marshall, another Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, ruled that the colonizers' land claims preempted those of the indigenous inhabitants, even though under international law, an occupying power generally recognized the property rights of existing residents. To justify this deviation, he said, "Conquest gives a title which the courts of the conqueror cannot deny, whatever the private and speculative opinions of individuals may be respecting the original justice of the claim which has been asserted." He went on to say that usually the conquered are incorporated with the victorious nation and they ultimately become one people. In this case, however, it would be impossible because the Indians were, quote, "fierce savages," and living with them only exposed the settlers to, quote, "the perpetual hazard of being massacred." So from the beginning, a dual system was envisioned, put in place by the law and enforced by the courts. This was facilitated by international law, which has also always been a dual legal system because it was designed to support colonial expansion. International law, as we know it today, emerged from the agreements of, quote, "civilized," read European, states to abide by one set of norms in their relations with each other, while allowing them to violate those norms consistently in their interactions with the rest of the world. And even though colonialism has, in theory, been discredited in international law, the United States and other powerful settler states have wielded their influence to exempt their colonial occupation from the decolonization mandate. And we see that, of course, painfully clearly right now with respect to Palestine. The contradictions are glaring at the international level and with respect to the enforcement of constitutional rights here in the US. And that's why the analyses that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party have put forth consistently for the past half century are seen as a threat to what those who claim to be real Americans envision as their liberties. And that's what conspiracy law has always been about, protecting power against those who would envision alternate ways, more humane and just ways to organize ourselves and our communities. In other words, conspiracy laws are another end run around our most fundamental rights, especially our right, the right of all peoples to self-determination. Thank you.
Uhuru. Wow. Thank you so much, Comrade Professor Natu. That just really want to salute that really brilliant presentation, just to be able to contextualize, as you said, colonialism and the law in under 10 minutes was really profound. And, you know, and particularly you know, helping us to understand even just the origins of conspiracy as you kind of, I think, remember you describing it as like this fear, you know, and just this constant fear that the colonizers are going to dismantle this colonial power, and just even our existence, you know, exposes this settler system. And so it's just really important context. And I just want to, if you have any books or anything else that we can continue to read and to share with the people, please do. It's really important that we, you know, have these types of discussions in our classrooms, you know, and that we continue to, you know, lift up all of the forces out there that are on the front lines of talking about colonialism, one, but then also helping us to understand it in this current context. And again, this is not happening separate from what is happening on this, you know, these stolen lands, and also in Palestine as well. So really want to appreciate that presentation. Chairwoman Penny, did you have anything to add before we bring up our next speaker? And thank you, Natsu, and thank you to all of our amazing panelists.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
just want to join in thanking Natsu for that brilliant, that was amazing. And really, thank you so much for this presentation and every time that you contribute to these events.
Yeah, thank you, Uhuru. So comrades, we are bringing up our next speaker, our keynote speaker, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And while I take a moment to bring up the chairman, oh, there he is, just took a turn of the camera. I just want to also acknowledge the chairman has, you know, continued to be busy out there with interviews and presentations, and was just at, want to also recognize October 17th, 1984, which was, you know, just this past October 17th, was, you know, recognition of the New York Eight, who also faced counts and, you know, of conspiracy, RICO, and, you know, yielded a not guilty verdict. But again, because of the fight of the people, but that was an attempt to criminalize political activity and to, again, destroy advanced sectors of the African liberation movement, of the Black liberation movement, of which the chairman is a part of, and comrades Omawale Clay, Roger Wareham, and late comrade Sister Viola Plummer. I just want to salute those forces of December 12th who were, who came out of that struggle as well. And the chairman just had a chance to speak there. So I just wanted to mention that, Chairman. But Chairman, I wanted to turn it over to you and really just salute you in this fight and just your relentless struggle, and that we will free Chairman Amalia Shatala. We will see freedom in your lifetime, and that this fight back is behind you 100%. So Uhuru, Chairman, and welcome.
Uhuru, thank you very much, Secretary General Mwezi, and I want to express appreciation to the other members of the Uhuru 3. It's an extraordinary kind of group to be a part of. And also, I cannot overstate the significance of the presentations that we've just heard now, all of them. And a weakness of our movement in the 1960s, when we came under the iteration of repression that is responsible for many of the people we're talking about being murdered and who are locked up today, is that we did not have the advantage of this kind of discussion. We didn't know about this. There was so much that we were in the dark about. And even though we suspected that there was some coordinated attack hitting us, because you couldn't open the newspaper or read about something that did not result in attacks being made on us, etc. So we did not have the advantage of knowing that this was some consolidated, actually well-defined program and attack that was being made against us, and that there was a historical basis for it. That's not true today. And that's one of the benefits of this discussion that we're having now. That's one of the benefits of having veterans in this movement that constitute a kind of memory for our movement that allows us to move into the future, not being blind as we were in many instances. And everything that we learned in the 1960s, it was almost like on-the-job training. We did not have the advantage of veterans who could help us to get a better grip. And in many ways, we were severely weak in terms of theory, ideology. And so that factored into the process too, in terms of the people being able to participate in the best possible way with the struggle. And another real problem we had in the 1960s was that generally speaking, what is characterized as the white left worked as hard against us as the United States government, by which I mean that they were willing to protest often certain kinds of things and events that were happening in the world, but they denied also the right of Africans and colonized people to have agency. They came up, articulated philosophy that made an assumption that the world revolved around white people, the white so-called, in this instance, they characterized these white people as the white working class, and that struggles by Africans and struggles by Mexicans and other indigenous peoples were simply something that would divide the white working class and that would detract from the ability of making a revolution to overturn this social system. That's not the view that we have. That's not the view that most of the Mexicans and indigenous people had. We had a whole different understanding of things. And from our perspective, the weakness of the struggle that we were involved in was white people. Generally speaking, that was the thing that put a drag on the movement. When everybody else was trying to move, if we just think about it, if the white left had been as supportive of the struggles that we are talking about with Leonard Peltier, the struggles that resulted in the murder of Fred Hampton and all the other people that we're talking about, we would have a different discussion now. And that was one of the bases, one of the things that made it necessary for us to create the African People Solidarity Committee and the Solidarity Movement as such, because it was absolutely unacceptable to have groups of people, the white people who love us, would come into a movement and as interventionists, and not people who were supposedly supporting Black people, supporting the indigenous people, et cetera, who came in to work under their leadership doing that, but they would come in telling us what we had to do. And the fact is that they defined us as simply some kind of auxiliary force that would facilitate the rise of this imaginary united working class to power. So that was a problem all the way along. And that's a problem that we've taken on in several different ways that makes what's happened important. We had an extraordinary victory in Tampa, Florida with this trial. And the thing that helped to make it victorious is that we won so many people who came into this process at least being able to state that this was a struggle for anti-colonial free speech. And this was an instance where the colonized were defining the struggle and providing general leadership for the struggle. And this is notwithstanding the fact that opportunism prevails all the time and that people come into this for their own purposes. In most instances, they come into it to build themselves sometimes, I should say anyway, forces called a white left. But this is the first time we see such a turning point. We see being in a place in history with a movement that clearly the whole political and economic configuration of the world is in a state of extraordinary transformation, and the colonized people are leading this. That colonized people are leading when you look at what's happening with Gaza and with the war that's being made against the Palestinian people. I saw something today, I think it might have been Wall Street Journal or one of the others, who talked about the murder of Yahya Sinwar, that how he had made this brutal mistake and this grievous error in thinking that somehow he was going to be responsible for change in the Middle East about what he's done. And then, of course, you read that the United States government has military forces, if we didn't know it, now on the ground in this white nationalist illegitimate state that they call Israel. Well, the fact is that as this insignificant as this Palestinian movement, insignificant as tiny Palestine, you see that the whole world has changed. And the fact is that the relations of power in the world are undergoing profound transformation right now because it's the colonial question. And the Palestinian issue has stood up as an outstanding component of the colonial question. And that's what we're looking at today, the rise of the colonial question, for something that we've fought for within the African People's Socialist Party for more than 50 years, to make it necessary to move from this idealism, this philosophical idealism that talks about racism being the problem, or the ideas in the heads of white people that you can't measure or anything at all, and talk about the question of colonialism. That's the struggle that they attacked in the 1960s. The Black Panther Party was an anti-colonial movement at the time when it was conscious of its mission. It was thrust into anti-colonial movement because the whole world was involved in a struggle against colonialism. This is how progress is being measured. But what was happening in Africa, what was happening in South America, what was happening throughout Asia and what have you, the world was involved in a struggle against colonialism, and we had to struggle against the status quo, which had come into existence in some of the ways that's been talked about now by Comrade Nassau. So you had this entire apparatus resting on the backs of the majority of the people on the planet Earth. The laws that were made on the backs of the majority of the peoples on the planet Earth. And so you have a situation where even international law created at a time where most of the people who are affected by, who are living around the world, did not have access to international law. The United Nations was created, and most of the people there made this law were white people, the colonizers, not the colonized. So this is the contradiction that we've been confronted with. When we find ourselves now having to ask the question of how do we move forward? How do we continue to mobilize the people? And I thought we had a great example with this trial, where we saw people, all kinds of peoples from around the world, and specifically also here inside the United States. We saw Mexicans, we saw Africans, we saw white people, we saw leftists, we saw people who were considered on the right wing, all kinds of forces, because the central question now is not whether somebody believes that Stalin was right or Trotsky was right or Roosevelt was right or something to this effect. The question was colonialism and what was happening to colonized people. And the colonized people call this mobilization into existence. So that was very important. And so now we are engaged as writing these letters. I understand we have extended time before we have to go for the sentencing. So we're writing letters, say 50 or 500 letters at least for each of the persons. We're getting letters not because
we believe that the judge reading these letters will feel some sympathy because we are nice people, etc. The letters are something that reflects our recognition that it's a political trial and that the people represent the fundamental political question all the time. And that a court system and all of them have to be faced with the fact that the vast majority of the people recognize that this is an attack on basic democratic rights of African people. And then beyond that, it's it's an attack on the democratic rights of the people in general. So this is what it means to get 1,500 letters to the judge. Let him open this up. Let him see 1,500 letters. Let him see 500 letters from each person when they usually get a lot if they get 10 letters for somebody who's on trial. So this is what makes this important. And another thing that makes it important too, and this is what all of us have to take out. We have to be there, of course, on December 16th. Pack the court. Be there in great numbers and what have you, because it does the same thing in terms of exposing our recognition of what is going on. So this is not something that happens underground, that they don't recognize. We have to recognize also, we are convinced, the centrality of the colonial question in terms of how we move forward in history. The fact is that this capitalist system that Comrade Angela talked about, that they move so hard to protect. And what do they protect the capitalist system from? It's not from the Communist Party. It's not from some entity like that. The capitalist system has to be protected from the colonized because the capitalist system came into existence through this whole process of initiated by Portugal some 600 years ago with the capture of the first African people and the spread of African people against our will to all these places, including right here in the United States where we are located. There was no world economy before this process of enslavement of African people and transferring us around the world. That's what created Cuba. That's what created Venezuela that they have to still be concerned about today, because when they enslaved African people under colonial enslavement and transfers us to all these places around the world, they took the African Revolution there also because they attacked Africa. They attacked, and part of the attack on Africa resulted in my being in St. Louis at this moment. It resulted in what is now Cuba and the various other places that we are talking about. So the foundation of the whole capitalist system is colonialism. In fact, there was somebody who, like Karl Marx, who made the statement a long time ago that in order to understand this thing that they call capitalism, you have to get to the point of the reality is that you're talking about an accumulation of capital. A capitalist accumulation of capital is necessary for the capitalist production. But the only way you can get capitalist accumulation is to presuppose there was an accumulation of capital that predated, that came before the capitalist production. And that, of course, is what he called primitive accumulation. He misidentified it because we call it what it was. It was initiation of a colonial mode of production, because the Marxists were able to talk about moving from what they characterized as slavery, and they gave it a universal thing, although it was something that happened, we know, mostly within what is now called Europe. And they talked about how from slavery, there was this, from what they call primitive communism. Primitive communism is the communism that existed before white people thought of the idea of trying to create certain situations that were natural to indigenous and Africans and some other people. This was primitive communism. From that, slavery, from that, what they refer to as feudalism. All of these are modes of production with certain features about them, within which all of the production of life occurs within these systems. And then, of course, they talked about the emergence of capitalism. But to get from feudalism to capitalism, Marx said that you had to presuppose there was an accumulation of capital that came before capitalism. And that he characterized as primitive accumulation. And we characterize it as a colonial mode of production. This is how, and it continues to exist up to this very moment. How the whole world is connected to each other through this colonial mode of production. And the problem is that this colonial mode of production is under assault by conscious human beings all around the world who are determined to live as free people, who are determined to have dignity, who are determined to be able to see a future of our own that is not something that is determined by the interests and the aspirations and needs of the colonizer. Point. So that's the thing that we're looking at. And so part of the struggle, of course, is that in terms of the people's involvement, I think that we want everybody to be a part of this. We don't care if they're opportunists and just believe that the First Amendment just is important for white people. Okay, let it be important for white people. We don't care if they believe that the Bill of Rights is just good for white people. Of course, that's how it was founded, wasn't it? Because 1791 is when they were ratified, and African people were property in 1791. So let them believe that too. But what we will help them to understand is that the fact that free speech, First Amendment, Bill of Rights was created for you white people. When they attack me, I never had them at all. And so they are not attacking my Bill of Rights. They're not attacking my First Amendment. They're attacking yours, and they're using me as a vehicle to do that. That's one thing that we have to help people understand. And that helps them to understand, hopefully bring them closer to the colonial question, because we've had a relationship now. We have all kinds of people who have been able to unite with the struggle that we're involved in because they see the issues of First Amendment, Bill of Rights, et cetera. We want them to see that. And we also want people to see the issue of the colonial question, because what happens is if they convict us on this charge of working for Russia, an objective of doing that was to quiet any kinds of resistance, any articulation of struggle that Black people, indigenous people might engage in. What they're doing is saying that the United States is perfect. Why the hell would you talk about what happened at Wounded Knee? Unless Russians or somebody else told you to say it. The United States is perfect. Why would you talk about it being the largest prison population in the world because they got Africans and so-called indigenous people locked up in prison unless the Russians told you to say it? The United States is perfect. Why would you talk about gentrification and all the horrible things happening to you unless the Russians told you to do it? This was part of what it is that they intended to do by using this thing about being Russian, working for Russian agents for Russia. And that's why we have to fight against it, and we can win that. We have won that. The jury said that's not the case. But the jury folded on the whole question of conspiracy, partially because a discussion can be a conspiracy as far as they're concerned. That's why we have to win this one too, because this meeting can be characterized as the conspiracy, the one that we're having right now. The meeting that you go back to after this can be characterized as a conspiracy, and that's why we have to fight it. And the other thing is that we have to promote to everybody that people who are charged with drugs or anything else go to trial. Fight the case. Yeah. And I know you may not be organized to do the things we can do. Then make the federal public defenders fight the case in your interest, and fight to make the federal public defenders do what you think they should be doing. The point is that the system cannot handle people who fight back. Yeah. And so they have a 98% conviction rate because nobody's fighting them. But if everybody was fighting them, 2, 3, many not guilties. That's the kind of thing that we have to promote throughout this whole judicial process. Yeah. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that we must push the white left. Mm-hmm. They have to support the struggle against colonialism, and to put themselves in this place of doing the same thing that the government is doing to us. By delegitimizing our struggle as peoples everywhere upon whom the whole foundation rests is criminal. And they have to be able to say, I don't care what Lenin said. I don't care what Trotsky said, although Lenin and Trotsky had much better positions on this question than most of the left. And I can quote that if necessary. But what I'm saying is that there's no way in hell. We just came out of a march last year, and I'm over-talked it. We just came out of a march last year with the Black is Black Coalition for Social Justice. That was a march that was designed to fight these charges too, to mobilize all the people, call on all the people, Africans, white people, everybody, join with the Black People's March on the White House to push back against these charges against the Uhuru 3. And we got a white left organization that used the Palestinian question. This is a white left organization we called to join with us in this struggle. We asked them to participate in this struggle. We didn't even hear from them until we heard that they had engaged in using their resources and their contacts and what have you to mobilize a huge sector of the Palestinian movement on the same day, at the same place. This is what they've done. And then they put us in a situation of being opponents of the Palestinians. That was the objective, and the Palestinians being opponents of what we were doing. But the fact of the matter is, Black people supported the resistance of the Palestinian movement at the time for the whole white left. All of them refused to support and attack the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, the organization that I was a part of, the organization that Comrade Field was a part of, attacked and took all the money from us because we supported the Palestinian movement. Malcolm X was in Palestine in 1964, and others of us have always done this. So this was an attack on our movement. And the fact of the matter is an attack on the Palestinian movement too, because Palestine cannot exist in isolation from the rest of the world. Palestinian is a part of the whole anti-colonial dynamic that we are talking about now. We have to pull all of that together. That's part of what this is about. That's part of what this movement, this response to this is all about. Uniting the struggle against colonialism, the colonial mode of production, and winning everybody to unite with that, identifying this as the critical question. Because once you do that, you see that white people are not the center of the universe. The colonizers are not the center of the universe. It's the colonized who are the center of the universe, and the liberation of whom will determine what kind of future we're going to have. Uhuru.
Oh, Uhuru. Yes, Chairman. Brilliant presentation and just call to action and to keep on fighting. I just really want to salute, Chairman, just even your call to overturn or just this 8 something conviction rate, take it to the court, fight, bring everything that we have, because the strongest thing that we have as people is organization. And even without that, like you said, make these public defenders and those who claim to be a part of this, really wanting to defend the people, help them to also take responsibility for that as well. And there's just a lot of support and in the chat, Chairman, for you, and some really great comments as well. So there's so much more to be said, but this fight back continues. And thank you so much, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru. All right, great, comrades. So we are advancing this really powerful webinar. I really want to salute all the presentations that you've heard thus far. You are joining us. This is a presentation and a webinar brought to you by the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. We are talking about how conspiracy charges have been historically used to attack the African liberation struggle, to attack any anti-colonial struggle, which we are seeing happening all around the world. And as the chairman said, this meeting itself can be described as that itself, but we are relentless, and we will continue to expose every aspect of the shaky system, which is fighting tooth and nail to have any type of relevance. And we are going to put its final nail in the coffin in this lifetime. And I just really want to appreciate everybody who's still with us on today. We have a goal of raising $2,000 for and towards the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, towards this legal defense. And I'm really excited to bring up our exciting and amazing fundraising team and the chair of the fundraising committee, Amanda Carlozzi, who is there with us on the ground in St. Louis. I want to appreciate you, Carmine. We're going to go through the appeal right now and tell the people how they can continue to support and why we are calling on them to support us in what we've described as phase 3 of our fundraising goal. So Uhuru, Amanda, and I'll be staying on with you for this part. Uhuru.
Hey, Amanda.
Uhuru.
Yeah.
Uhuru, everybody. I just want to start, saluting the Uhuru 3 and your amazing stance over the past 2 years. It's really just an inspiration to work with you and just to see how this campaign has been led over the past 2 years. This has been a really powerful program so far. I really appreciate all the presentations. I've learned so much already. I know everyone else has as well. And I just want to thank everyone that's tuning in and, your unwavering commitment over the past 2 years to defend the Uhuru 3 and all of our right to anti-colonial free speech. So we can go ahead to the next slide here. And as she said, I'm being joined by the Hands Off Uhuru Chair Mwezi Odom. And I just really want to salute you as well in your amazing work leading this campaign over the last 2 years. And I appreciate you for joining me today to talk about phase 3 of the fundraising. We can go to the next slide again. So today's goal is $2,000. We're going to talk about how that works into the overall phase 3 goal overall. While we're speaking, you can go to handsoffahuru.org/donate. And many of you have already done that so far. So I want to take this time to thank you. We have Lamise, who did $40, Dawn, who did $20, Leah, who did $250.
Wow.
John, who did $40, Ruby, who did $50, her Ruby's here, Maureen, who did $100, myself, I did $50 so far, MQ did $40 once,
MQ.
and then MQ did $40 again,
All right.
and then MQ did $40 a third time. We haven't even done the appeal yet. And then we have Kitty, who gave $30, Allison, who gave $100, Robert, who gave $50, Brendan, who gave $25, Karpani, who gave $25, and that brings our total so far to $900. So I want to salute all of you so far.
Uhuru.
And that means left we have $1,100 to go to reach this goal. And you know, there are so far 51 people on Zoom. I know there are more people watching on our other platforms as well. So if just 22 people gave $50, we're going to reach the goal today. So Uhuru, we can go to the next slide here.
I'm going to give 100.
Uhuru, Penny is going to give 100.
Right on. Uhuru, Chairwoman Penny, and everybody who has donated so far. And thank you, Carmetta, Amanda. Like you had said, it's been so powerful to just see all the support since the very beginning. And as we said, $1 to $1,000, all of this matters. And again, with your participation, you have also helped us to, fight back in terms of this letter writing campaign. And in terms of, we've received hundreds of donations, but we've also received hundreds of letters in support of the Uhuru 3 leading up to this bogus sentencing. And as we say, the numbers do not lie. So we want to put it out there. Chairwoman Penny Hess, we have a total, and actually since the call was made earlier in this program, we've seen more letters come in. So this is even just a little bit behind, but 365 letters submitted for Chairwoman Penny. Of our goal of 500 for Chair Jesse, 360 letters, and for the chairman, 513 letters have been received. And again, that number continues, and all over the world. And just really want to salute that powerful letter writing campaign. Uhuru.
Uhuru, we can go to the next slide here. So we can't read all the letters today, but I want to just read some quotes that we picked out just to put forward the amazing words that everyone has been saying about the Uhuru 3. So we have Omali Yeshitela has not only spoken, but has worked to build a future we can all be inspired by and live out the meaning of securing human rights for all. And that was from Benjamin Prado of Unión del Barrio. Since the 1970s, Ms. Hess has devoted her entire adult life to organizing and speaking out against Black oppression, colonialism, and imperialism. She has a high reputation among those who have worked with her for her principles, sincerity, and honesty. And that was from Karen of the Partisan Defense Committee. And Jesse Neville is a vital voice in human rights advocacy and addresses the disadvantages that plague the Black community due to systemic injustices. And while I have this slide up, I just want to take some time to thank, again, Penny Hess, who's going to give 100, Jesse Neville, who gave 30, Lisa, who gave 20, and then Ruth took on the call to be one of the people to give 50, and that brings our total to $1,100. So we can keep going to the next slide.
Uhuru, wonderful. Thank you so much for those donations and again, just those very, great quotes. And as we said, this is all towards the appeal. So we are entering phase 3 of our funding campaign, which is, dealing with raising the resources for the appeal directly after the sentencing on December 16th. So what is an appeal? An appeal is a formal request to a higher authority to review a lower court's decision. So appeals are a way to correct errors or clarify the law and interpret the law. So this is the next step of the campaign to rectify the inconsistent verdict of these bogus charges.
Uhuru, and the work is already underway. So we heard for that attorney Leonard Goodman, he already filed a renewed motion for judgment of acquittal or alternatively for a new trial. So that's the first step in this appeal process. So that has already been submitted by the attorneys. You can go to the next slide here.
Right. And so part of this, goal is that over the next 2 years, this appeal, according to our lawyers and what we understand, will cost $125,000. So I just want to put that out there. Uhuru.
We can go to the next slide here. So the great news is that we already have on hand, thanks to all of your amazing support over the last 2 years, $40,000. So I just want to salute all of you.
Yes.
So that means we are already at 30% of the phase 3 fundraising goal. And I just really want to salute the amazing fundraising team who worked, tirelessly to not just fundraise the resources, but, take a look at every single expense and make sure that every single dollar that you and we have given is going to, the best strategic way possible to win this fight back. So, Uhuru.
Do you want to hear some pledges from the chat?
Absolutely, yes.
So we have Comrade Lisa Davis said, well, Kat Turner said, I pledged 25.
Uhuru.
Saero said 25 on the first day of November.
Uhuru.
Lisa Davis will donate $20.
Uhuru.
Comrade Yindu says he will donate $30. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Larry Wells said he will donate $100.
Great.
And Comrade Jerome says I will give $50 immediately after the Zoom meeting.
All right, Uhuru.
Great.
Let me see. That brings our total so far to $1,400. So Uhuru, everyone. I just want to read through my list to make sure I didn't miss anybody. We also have Sophia, who is going to give 50, and I believe she already did. An anonymous person gave 20. And then I may have received more emails as well, but we can keep going through here.
It's 100 each.
Right on.
Me and Deputy.
Uhuru. All right, we have Uhuru. We have $100 from the chairman and then $100 from Deputy Chair Ona Zane as well. So Uhuru.
Wow.
I know that brings us to 1,600. I'm going to keep adding up here. Uhuru.
Okay, great. Right on. Thank you so much, comrades. That's really exciting. And just, what we have up here on the slide is we talked about this 125,000 over the next 2 years. We've already have $40 contributed to that goal, already 30% there. 55%, is represented by the legal fees in terms of the overall expenses for this phase 3 goal. Next slide.
Thank you. We can go to the next slide here. So this breaks down to $72,500 that goes towards these 3 attorneys here. We have Addie Griffin, Mutaki Akbar, and Tom Inskeep. So that is the cost for them. We can go to the next slide.
Uhuru. And we want to really salute attorneys Leonard Goodman and Angela Rainey for their continued pro bono services. This is really a profound contribution, and we want to continue to acknowledge this because these comrades have also committed to continue through the appeal until it's won with these pro bono services. So we just want to appreciate them as well. Uhuru.
And Chair Wizzy, if you don't mind just running through these slides with the percentages, just so I can start adding up, because we're getting more donations and I want to make sure we thank everyone.
Okay, great. Yes, I can take that on. So, the legal and attorney fees, as we said, represent the majority of the phase 3 needs at 54.6% of the expenses. Next slide. And the fiscal sponsorship fees that represent 18% of the expenses. Hands Off Uhuru is a fiscally sponsored 501c3 nonprofit, which means that all of your contributions are tax deductible. So, and the fiscal sponsorship adds a layer of protection. Where is that that this is a paid entity that handles all things related to taxes and legal statuses, so that this campaign can focus on winning this fight back. Next slide. So 7.5% of the overall so again, we will tour the Uhuru 3 in various cities, and this tour represents 7.5% of all expenses. So some of you have already made plans to bring the Uhuru 3 to your areas. This is where some of these expenses will be as well. And we want to, on the next slide, thank and appreciate all of our donors because, give backs and thank you cards and all of this is really important to be able to send, to be able to do appreciation of our donors. So that represents 4.5% of our expenses. In terms of promotional materials, 4.5%. This is for pamphlets, flyers, posters, anything else that we do to help put this out in the world. That's 4.5% of our expenses. And on the next slide, the court transcripts and other legal documents represent 3.8% of the expenses for phase 3. And logistics costs. So these are the costs for travel, for housing, food related, anything related to the appeal in terms of logistics, that's 3.8% of the expenses. And on the next slide, the cost of various communications platforms like our Zoom, our mass texting, our mass emails, this accounts for 2.8% of the overall budget.
Uhuru.
Amanda, I'll kick it back to you. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chair Mwezi. So we can stay on this slide just so people can see visually how the breakdown is. And while we're doing that, I just want to thank Linda, who became a sustainer at $50 a month. So Uhuru. And again, I really want to salute all of our sustainers. It makes a tremendous impact, especially over the next 2 years, to know that we have those resources coming in every month. So thank you, Linda. Really appreciate that. We have Opa, who gave 50. We have Kitty, who gave 50. So that's Kitty's second donation. And then we have Benjamin, who gave 100. And we quoted Benjamin earlier with his amazing letter. So Uhuru, comrades. And that brings us to 1,850. So we are just 150 away. I'm going to give another 50. So that means we just need another
100.
Another, yeah. So I see. Is that you, Chair Mwezi, in the comments?
That's me. Yes.
Uhuru. Chair Mwezi is going to give 50. So we just have $50 left.
Oh,
I just want to 25. All right.
I'll do the other 25.
All right. All right.
Uhuru, did you make it? Right.
I'll do 10 more.
Lisa Davis, 10 more. All right.
Wow.
No
Right
need
on, Lisa.
Uhuru,
so we made our goal.
We made our goal. Uhuru. So
Right on. Thank you. Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, it's okay. Go through these next slides really quick. Lisa, is it okay if we play this video right when we're done? It's of Hutaki speaking.
You mean at the end of the program?
No.
Or do you want to maybe just when we're done with the appeal?
Okay.
I just want to run through joining the committee and then we can go back to it just so it flows. So we can go to the next slide and then we can go back to this. So going forward, this is how we plan to raise the resources. So we want to increase the monthly sustainer income. So Linda helped us do that today, but we want to bring it up to $1,000 a month. That would be $24,000 over the next 2 years. We have an art auction coming up in 2025 that we're going to be planning that has a goal of $10,000. We will be bringing the Uhuru 3 on tour for a goal of $10,000. These monthly events that you're participating in, so definitely bring a friend next time. That has a goal of $2,000 every single month. We did meet this month. And then supporting organizations hosting their own fundraisers, which has already happened over the past 2 years, but we definitely want that to continue again moving forward. And we have a goal of $5,000 for that. So we can go to the next slide here. So again, bring the Uhuru 3 to your city. You can host them. It's an amazing way to promote this campaign and get to hear directly from the Uhuru 3. And then the last slide here, we want you to join the fundraising committee. So we have an amazing team so far. I, again, really want to salute all of you who are on this team. And we need more people to be over the events, be over the tours, give backs, promotions, fundraising, the accounting team, and there's so much more that you can do. So you can let us know in the comments if you would like to join this team, or you can email us at donate@handsoffahuru.org to join this team.
Dawn says she'll do 20 more.
All right, and Dawn will do 20 more.
Dawn.
Dawn. All right, so we are still exceeding our goal. So Uhuru.
What it really took for me was.
And yes, we can go to that. We can go to that video now. It's a really excellent video, and then the appeal team can come up. Thank you, Chair Mwezi. Uhuru, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, comrades. Uhuru, we did it.
Uhuru.
All right.
Was when we showed the video of the Impedum tour, the African Charged Genocide tour, with those sisters sitting around in a circle talking. Yeah. And the sister from Chicago had no idea who African People's Socialist Party was, had no idea who Impedum was. And at the end of the conversation, she was just so excited about having the conversation about this organization being there in Chicago, about confronting the United Nations, about genocide. And we got to look at the context of when this was going on. Like, this was in the middle of Black men dying almost every day at the hands of police. And this was like the peak, it was peaking of this social revolution of people really realizing, we've always known that was here. Like, this organization always known that we've been attacked, from, not only within, but from without. Yeah. And so this petition, this encampment, she was excited about it in the midst of all this evil that was going on around in our communities. Yeah. And she saw hope just by these sisters being there, from this tour. And when I looked over at the chairman after that video went off, he was teared up. He was wiping away those tears because I think he saw what this movement was all about just in that 10-minute conversation with those sisters. And he also saw what this government was trying to do to the movement just from that conversation. And my father is 80 years old. And so when I looked over at the chairman, and my father's been doing this work as well. And so when I looked over at the chairman, I saw my father. I literally did. And very rarely have I seen my father cry. But I have. And I would not have ever imagined seeing the chairman shed a tear because he's such a warrior. And warriors rarely shed tears. But that was what I needed. That's what I needed to see, because it was the passion that he had for this organization and what this organization means. And it was the reality that they were trying to take this away from him. They were trying to take away the ability for us to speak for ourselves, the ability for us to get in a van and go to Chicago, go to New York, go to DC, go to Jackson, Mississippi, and speak about the genocide of Black men, and to speak out about it and to fight against it as one voice. And that's what this was about. And so when I got up in the closing argument, the vision of the chairman wiping away those tears, the vision of a warrior, a revolutionary, a general, wiping away those tears in the reality of what was going on, I knew we couldn't walk out of there with the world thinking that we don't have a voice for ourselves, that we don't have the ability to speak for ourselves, that somebody else from Rush Asia, wherever it is, Eurasia, or wherever it is going to dictate and tell us what we can do, what we can think, how we can fight. In the midst of all of that, it was no way that we could walk away with anybody thinking that. And that's what the
Powerful to hear.
Uhuru. Yeah, that's always really powerful to hear from our attorneys, and just, the transformation that this took for everybody who was a part of this process. And that's why we want to invite you all, to remind you to come, to sign up to be in the courthouse again for the sentencing on December 16th, to see how this process is unfolding in front of the world. So thank you so much to our appeals team for that wonderful appeal. Everybody who donated, those who have made the commitments to donate, we made our goal. We will continue to fight back. And a part of this fight back is it's my honor to bring up just another dynamic force in this entire, fight back as well. The chair of the vice chair of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. This is Comrade Sister Lisa Davis, who is, just a bad comrade who is up there in New Jersey, really, facing just doing amazing work, and really looking forward to seeing this comrade on the ground in DC, in Washington, DC. So she's going to give us some, her, and I think Comrade Akinge, if not is already there, is also going to talk to us about, well, actually, maybe I have this reversed. Are we going to go to Comrade Sister Lisa Davis first? Because you're up. I see you there, Comrade. So, right, Penny?
We can do that. Yes.
Yeah, let's just go ahead. Okay, great. So I just want to make that call. Pack the courthouse. Go to handsoffuhuru.org/pack the courthouse. That's how you can sign up for the sentencing, because I want to call on everybody for November 2nd, the Black People's March on the White House, the 16th annual mobilization. So here is Comrade Sister Lisa Davis to give us an announcement and why we need to be there. Uhuru, Comrade.
Uhuru, first of all, I just have to express my most sincere appreciation for the Uhuru movement and everything that everybody has said so far. I just have to say ditto. I am so proud of the work of this movement. I'm so proud of the work of the Black is Back Coalition, and the chairman, Omali Yeshitela, is the chair of the Black is Back Coalition and also one of its co-founders. And we stand, and always have, we stand firmly behind our chairman and our comrades, Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, 100%, unrelentingly so. We stand behind him. And also, I'm just so proud of Chairman Nwezi, the Vice Chair Penny Hess, again, of this whole coalition. It has been tremendous and amazing. One of the reasons that I feel that the government went after our chairman and the other members of the Uhuru 3 was in large part because of the work of the Black is Back coalition and the work that we do around these elections and these politicians and getting our people to understand we've got to break away from this diabolical, ruthless, two-party, warmongering, anti-Black, anti-humanity system. And we have been doing the work. And one of the things that we have done toward that is we have deliberately chosen to have an annual march, the annual Black People's March on the White House at the beginning of November to coincide with these elections, right before the elections. And this year, we are having our annual Black People's March on November 2nd in Washington, D.C. Also in Los Angeles, there will be comrades having solidarity marches there as well. We also, we have international reach because of the work of the chairman. So we are also know that there will be people having demonstrations in occupied Tanzania, known as South Africa, Sierra Leone, the UK. We've had people throughout the world join us in these forces and in having mobilizations as well. And certainly if you are not in any of these areas locally, and it's hard for you to get to DC or to Los Angeles, you can also have something in your area to support. So we are having this mobilization in DC, November 2nd. We are urging everyone to come out to DC or to come out to Los Angeles. In DC, it's going to be Malcolm X Park. Los Angeles, it's going to be MLK and Crenshaw Boulevard. The two websites that I'm encouraging everyone to monitor and to watch for, because we will be providing updates, but the blackisbackcoalition.org and also the blackpeoplesmarch.com. It is so important for us to show up even more than we have before. We want to double, triple the participation that we have been getting. It is so important. I don't have to tell you about the urgency and the seriousness of the hour. And one of the things that also makes me so proud of the Black is Back coalition, because our 19-point platform encompasses it all. In addition to calling for the support of Black families and reparations and, putting forward our needs boldly in terms of what we want, protecting Black families, reparations. We also call point number 18 of the Black is Back 19-point platform is a free Palestine. Point number 16 is U.S. out of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We recognize the importance of building an anti-colonial global movement, because that is what it is going to take. And we stand completely in solidarity with the Palestinian people, the Lebanese, Iran, all these people who are fighting all over the world, including the Congo, the Sudan. All these people are fighting against oppression, and we have to make a strong statement to these Democrats, but not just the Democrats. We also know the Republicans, and go to their house. Go boldly to their house November 2nd and let them know we are going to change this world. It has got to change. I want to just briefly read a little bit of the call. I won't read it all, but I'm going to read a little bit of the call of for the Black People's March for this year. The call on November 1st through 3rd, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations will hold its 16th annual Black People's March on the White House in Washington, D.C., and a West Coast March will also be held in Los Angeles. This year's March Rally and Conference celebrates the recent victory of the Uhuru 3 as a profound achievement for the African liberation movement and the peoples of the world. While the struggle is not over, the Uhuru 3 defeated the bogus foundational charge of being a Russian agent that threatened a 10-year prison sentence in a federal colonial court system that boasts a 98% conviction rate. Comrades, this is historic. The three were convicted of the lesser charge, however, of conspiracy, which they are confident will be overturned during the upcoming appeal. The victory punctuates the resurrection of the Black Revolution against U.S. domestic colonialism and the colonial mode of production that has ensnared the world subsequent to the attack on Africa by Portugal 600 years ago. This 2024 March takes place in a profound historic moment that the African People's Socialist Party has helped usher in. This is the moment when the colonial question has been thrust onto the center stage of world events by the struggles of the oppressed peoples everywhere, from Gaza, the West Bank and Lebanon, to the Congo, Haiti, and Sudan. The powerful fight back by the Uhuru movement against the U.S. government's attempts to silence the Black Revolution, colonized workers are rising up and winning across the globe. This is a call to you to join the jubilant and victorious fight that is bringing us to the other side of the abyss of demoralizing defeat experienced by our anti-colonial struggle of the 1960s. This march announces that the struggle for happiness and the return of our self-determination and the stolen resources necessary for the social production of Black life is alive and well. So join with the thousands of people from throughout the U.S. and the world who have stood with the hands off Uhuru movement and Black is back to bring us to this place in history. The struggles of African and oppressed peoples opens a new door to advance our liberation by finally exposing and defeating the counterinsurgency of the 60s that has hobbled our struggle for happiness and freedom to this day. And the last paragraph goes on to say, the time is now to fight for our power, to come together, to free ourselves from this colonial bondage. We must take the victory of the Uhuru 3 to the streets, showing that when we fight, we win. Free the Uhuru 3, victory to the African Revolution, victory to Palestine, victory to Cuba, victory to Haiti, to the Congo, to Sudan, all over the world. We stand with you. And we want everybody to be a part of this mobilization. And also we have on day 2, or actually the 3rd day, because day 1, which is a Friday, is usually a press conference and a rally before the main march on November 2nd, which is a Saturday. But also register, please go to the website and register for the 3rd day, which is the conference. We know they're watching us now. We might have thought it before, but we know they're watching us, and they're going to measure how many people we appeal to. They're going to be measuring and looking at how many people show up in DC, but also they're going to be measuring and looking at how many people register for this event on the 3rd day. It is so important, and the times demand this of us. I know so many of us have so much on our plate, but these are the times we live in. And when I wake up every single day and I hear about the people who are being bombed, Palestine, Lebanon, the Congo, the Sudan, those people didn't ask for that. They didn't ask for that at all. But this government is at the center of that. Whether we like it or not, we in the United States are at the center of this demoralizing war on the people of the world. So they don't want to go through that. So I always look at that and say, I look at what they're going through, so I got to up my game as well and do what I got to do. These are the times that we live in. And I just want to say, in New York and in New Jersey, we are organizing a bus. I want to give you a number to contact if you're in that area. And that number is, hold on one second, I'm sorry. Oh, well, that number is 862-462-4091. Again, that is 862-462-4091. We want to fill the buses that we're getting. You can also donate, but if you contact that number or text that number, we can tell you how you can get connected with us. Again, thank you. I'm so appreciative to the leadership. I'm sure there's so many things I probably forgot. Sister Kanga, if I forgot anything you want to jump in, please do so. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you.
Oh, and also the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition is co-sponsoring this with us. Yes, I'm so looking forward to that. We thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Sister Lisa Davis, and really appreciate you taking a moment to read just a small portion of the call. really powerful call to mobilize for November 2nd in Washington, D.C., and the Western region mobilization happening in Los Angeles, again, on November 2nd. And yes, Sister Lisa, if you can put that phone number in the chat, that would be great. So that comrades in the North region know how to get to DC via bus leaving from, you said New Jersey?
New York and New Jersey.
From New York and New Jersey, great. So yes, comrades, go to blackpeoplesmarch.com. This is where you can get more information about the DC and the LA mobilizations. You can register, you can read the call, you can get information about hotels as well. So we just want to really salute the Black is Back Coalition and indeed unite with that, you know, with the understanding that this was also an attack on the chair of the Black is Back Coalition, and because the BIB has always stood, you know, for the anti-colonial struggle, the anti-imperialist struggle since its founding. And I appreciate you also reading the 19-point platforms for self-determination, really powerful platform. If comrades have not read it, please go to the blackisbackcoalition.org to get more information. So, Chairwoman Penny, did you have anything to add before we move to just a few questions that I see in the chat and then announcements? Yeah.
Uhuru. Well, this has been an amazing, really powerful webinar today. I know that Chairman, you were saying that you wanted to add that the Black is Back will also be in Africa and in London.
No, the actions that we be dealing with on the 2nd, you know, it's in the call.
Okay,
And we mentioned in the call that it's also going to be mobilization in the West Coast. I'm just want to include in that also in Africa, and different parts of Africa and in London.
And in London,
yes.
Right. Wow, that's powerful.
And that's important. We need to also find a way to, I think I've talked to Comrade King about this already. We need to find a way for people to register from those places as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will be updating, the website will be constantly updated, so just know that.
Right on.
Uhuru.
Yes. Uhuru. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, and this, you know, this took place last year in Pretoria, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and I'm probably missing another country in West Africa, but also in London. And we want to replicate that again this year. So yes, please continue to check the blackpeoplesmarch.com for more information. And we just have a few questions and we're going to be moving towards close of today's webinar. I just wanted to read one of the comments. This is from Comrade Don Lawson. I think this was posted during the presentation from Attorney Angela Rainey, just talking about the, you know, just the ridiculousness of how conspiracy charges are used. And she mentioned here that she did time with a woman who was 59 years, or who was doing 59 years on a conspiracy charge. Her son dealt drugs out of a house that she rented to him, and their quote unquote evidence was that she was seen making a monetary transaction with her son. This was just simply collecting rent, and that, you know, and that this mother could not even pronounce the name of the drug. But, you know, they took her because she also owns several homes, and property seizure is, you know, is a moneymaker. And so, again, this is just a very simple, example of how these laws are used against the people. And there's a question here from one of our favorite comrades, Comrade MQ, who asked the question, can the, quote, the US government lied and lost, the Uhuru movement told the truth and won, be on Uhuru Planet t-shirts? And I don't see what.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great proposal, Comrade MQ. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. We have to
Great. Definitely. So we'll make sure that we get that to the Uhuru Planet team, and I know they're already listening. So without further ado, if there's any closing remarks, Chairman, I turn that to you before we move to announcements on today.
I just want to say, this conspiracy thing articulates itself in 1,000 different ways. And the thing that Don mentioned is just one aspect of it. But throughout this country, we've been faced with the situation that people live in federal housing projects and stuff like that. If the government claims that somebody, a son or anybody else was selling drugs, one thing, they get kicked out of the house, or they can't get housing and what have you. And this is not, like an explicit statement of the conspiracy thing, but it articulates itself 1,000 different ways. A problem is that this happens under the radar for white people. Generally speaking, that's not to say that there are not some, poor white people who live and experience this, but generally speaking, it's not something that hits groups of people so that they would be recognizing this, and they makes it easier for people like that to say, well, they must have done something, or the government wouldn't have attacked them, right? Etc. Yeah.
Uhuru. Uhuru, and I would just add really quickly to, this, that there was an article, it's actually a video that was in the New York Times this week that showed that how much money that this system makes on sending African people in particular to prison, that it costs to go to prison. They calculate the cost of each person going to prison being at a minimum $25,000. And so it means that people, have debt. They're in debt while they're in prison. And it's just part of this vicious, all the different fronts in which.
How does that mean? What do you mean you say it's that debt? Tell us what, can you be more explicit about how that $20,000?
Because usually the people that are in prison do not have $25,000. They calculate all of the different money. It tells you, I can put it in the link in of it. It's it just calculates all the money they have to spend going to prison, and not even counting, what do you call it? When you have to pay a fine.
Yeah.
Not even counting that, just the cost.
Of living inside. They have to pay for medicine.
Yeah, they have to.
My chairman, aspirin might cost $3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One aspirin is like $10.
Yeah.
To get any.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's saying they have to pay rent there every day. They have to, all healthcare costs exorbitant amount of money if anything is wrong with
And the
them.
commissary is
Yeah.
all the chain.
Yeah.
Regular
Yeah.
stuff, like we might go get a jar of peanut butter, which is might be, it's like $5 and $6 more than what we pay.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, just for toothpaste and.
Phone call.
Yeah, and the phone calls are 14 cents a minute, and that it's saying that also the families, go in debt as well. And anyway, it's just typical of what the system does, and making money off of colonialism and the colonial domination of African people. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Yeah, that's really important. And we're actually going to be, this information will be up on our website soon, and also anybody who subscribes to our mailer lights, if you go to handsoffuhuru.org/subscribe, you can receive these notifications via email, because we want to be able to continue to share all these documents and these articles that are out there. On the website, there is places as well where you can find related articles to the Uhuru 3 and to this whole question of colonialism and the law and the Uhuru 3 case, as well as media interviews and things with the Uhuru 3 where we're able to kind of sum this up in different contexts. So thank you, Chairwoman Penny, for that information. And great. So we're going to head right into our announcements. And I just really want to salute and appreciate every single one of our dynamic speakers. I want to appreciate Director Aisha Fields of the Hands Off Uhuru letter writing campaign. I want to thank and appreciate the Uhuru 3 for their presentations, as well as Sister Afia Wangaza, Ward Churchill, Angela Rainey, Natsu Saito, and Lauren Reagan, who couldn't be with us, Comrade Sister Lisa Davis of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. So now to our announcements. Please look in the chat for more information for every single event of the Uhuru movement, happening with the Hands Off Uhuru and subsequent events. We want to invite you to go to handsoffuhuru.org/events to get more information. We want to remind everybody that the deadline has been extended to write your letters. Letters are still pouring in, so it has been extended to October 30th. Help us reach our goal to meet 1,500 letters for the Uhuru 3 by going to handsoffuhuru.org/letters for guidelines and instructions. The sentencing for the Uhuru 3 has been changed. It will be on Monday, December 16th at 9 a.m. All three of the Uhuru 3 will be having their hearings on that day, but beginning in the morning. For more information, go to handsoffuhuru.org. You will see where you can pack the courthouse and get more information on that coming up soon. We also want to say that, you know, part of this attack was because of white solidarity with the African liberation struggle. The March Against Genocide and the Days of Reparation to African People, all of this is happening in the month of October. Go to tinyurl.com/reparationsconference. This is where you can sign up for the reparations conference, but as well as go to the Uhuru Solidarity website, uhurusolidarity.org. You can also get more information there to learn about these upcoming marches and mobilizations and conferences, all in support of, you know, African, Palestinian, and all oppressed peoples as well. So thank you so much for that. And again, the call to go to November 2nd, the Black People's March on the White House and other locations in Los Angeles and in Africa and in Europe. If you want more information about this, go to blackpeoplesmarch.com to get more information about how you can be there. And again, the information for the bus, if you want to get on the bus coming from New York and New Jersey, you can call 862-462-4091. That's 862-462-4091.
May I just interject? I'm sorry, may I just interject one thing real quickly, very important? On the third day, the day of the conference, we're going to be challenging the FARA law. So you'll want to be a part of that. Please register, because we are coming up with campaigns on how to do that, how to change things. Thank you so much, Uhuru.
Thank you, Sister Lisa. Yes, so the pre-rally will be on the Friday. The march is on the Saturday, and on that Sunday, November 3rd, is a really dynamic conference taking place in DC. It will also be virtual, so register for all of that at blackpeoplesmarch.com. Thank you so much, comrade, Sister Lisa. And again, we are advancing the right to anti-colonial free speech. So again, that's more information about the Black People's March. The next slide is showing just a brief, information about the mobilization happening in the West Coast, where we are also working with the Africa Town Coalition, Unión del Barrio, and other organizations like the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, who are helping to bring all the demands of the peoples as well to this mobilization. For all flyers and to help get this information out on the streets, go to handsoffuhuru.org/outreach. This is one of the things that you can always do, is to download these updated flyers and information, get this information out on the streets. And we are so excited that the October and November issue of the Burning Spear is out. It has gone to print, and we want everybody to get a copy. This is a 2-month-long issue. There's so much information in here, giving about like a whole overview of the trial. There are statements, there are great photos. You can also subscribe to a digital version of the Spear as well. So go to theburningspear.com/subscribe. If you have your copy of the Spear, put it in the chat. If you're already a subscriber, let us know, let others know. Go to theburningspear.com to be able to sell bundles if you want to be a part of selling this. And the Spear is only $1 if you see us on the streets. That's what we're doing. So last but not least, go to handsoffuhuru.org/shop or uhuruplanet.com to get your Hands Off Uhuru gear. And yes, to get your Hands Off Uhuru swag, and continue to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Hands Off Uhuru. Comrades, we're going to end it here for today. And remember, Uhuru means freedom.
One more thing.
Yes.
Yes, Comrade Amanda's going to give us a final.
Oh, yes, I meant to go back. Yes, our fundraising goal before we wrap up.
Uhuru.
There she is. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chair Moisey. Thank you, everybody. So I want to add that Johan pledged $100. So Uhuru, Comrade Johan. And that brings our total to 2,130. So again,
Uhuru,
one other announcement.
Yes, Chairman.
Shortly after midnight today, Akile gave birth to an 8-pound plus baby.
Uhuru, reinforcements are on the way. Yes. Baby revolutionaries. Yes, we need them.
Yes, revolutionary baby girl is here, and we're so excited.
Yeah, little
about
girl.
it.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. She waited for the storm to pass, and she's here. So, Uhuru, what a great way to end this program. The fight back still continues, Chairman.
Old dies out to give rise to the new.
Yes.
Uhuru.
Right on. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Relentless.
Uhuru,
Fantastic.
Uhuru, Maria Stella. Uhuru, Sister Afia. Uhuru.